Hi, everybody. What are you doing? It's Tuesday. It is October 7th, 2025.
Kitty.
And we're still here. We're all still here. We all made it.
We did make it, didn't we?
We all made it to the week, to the week of Battlefield 6 releases, the release date. Congratulations. There's really no other games that works for other than Grand Theft Auto 6, is there? Oh, we got this before we got Tron 3 before we got Grand Theft Auto. Like, there's no other, I don't know, maybe Duke Nukem Forever could have fit into that slot for all the years that it was in development or something. I don't know. Hi, I'm Jeff Gerstmann. I'm here for this week's edition of the show. It has been a real roller coaster of days here. My wife and I got sick, and the kids didn't get sick. It was super fucking weird.
That is weird. Yep.
Normally, the order of operations is child goes to school, child gets
and you didn't
sick.
Notice. Yep. And then
we spend time trying not to get sick.
Yep.
And then maybe that works, maybe that doesn't. Maybe we manage to keep it away from the other kids by isolating one of the children in a glass case. Well, I'm in a bedroom. It's not really a glass case per se, but and trying to get all of that stuff separated. But my wife got sick, and then I got sick basically 6 hours after she did or something, and then the kids didn't get sick. So it's like, is this some lingering thing that the kids got that who knows, man? Who knows? But that collided with a bunch of other plans and just family stuff that was happening this weekend, and so it was like, well, we have to make sure that this isn't COVID, and because we're gonna go see family members, and we don't want to show up and be the guy that's like,
spread COVID.
Oh yeah, we all got sick, but it's fine. And then you leave, and then they're like, "Oh, now we're sick." And by the way, this is COVID, you assholes. You don't want to be that fucking guy.
I need to call my mom.
So make sure that it wasn't all of that stuff, and whatever else. So I don't know. It just a lingering funk that got in the way of last Friday's stream, but here we are now. Talking about video games, it's been a very bizarre 7 days here. This morning, though, reviews for the new Tron film started to hit. I have not seen it. I don't know. Initially, my thought was, as something of a Tron man, I was thinking, man, I guess I gotta go see this. I guess I need to actually go to a movie theater and see this damn movie, don't I? And then over the last couple of weeks, a couple of things happened. I watched Tron Legacy, the second Tron film, and I listened to the soundtrack for the new movie, and I started getting inundated with advertisements for Tron Ares, which is the new Tron movie, and kept seeing the same clips of Jared Leto over and over again, and this second and a half of Jeff Bridges, where you see him and you're like, I bet that's the whole time. I bet that's the only part of the movie he's in, is it? He's probably only in 8 seconds of that movie, isn't it? And you look at it. And I went into the Wikipedia page and started reading about it, and I'm like, because I'm trying to it's like, I don't know, I should be excited that they're even making a third Tron movie, because that's such a crazy thing to even do. It was insane when they made a second Tron movie. But as I kind of tried to go down this rabbit hole a little bit and just find out more about the movie, it was the more I saw of it and more I read about the path that it took to get to theaters and all of that stuff, I got less and less excited about the entire endeavor.
It's not a Disney product. It's owned by Disney.
Right? And now the reviews are out, and I feel like the reviews are largely confirming
Tron would just be
exactly what I thought this movie was going to be. I don't think Tron is some sacrosanct, it means a lot to me as a kid for reasons, for video game reasons, but you know, I recognize that the Tron movies are not awesome. And
Come on, the
and
first
all
one
of
was
that.
good,
But
dude. It was surreal.
the
A
second
surreal
Tron movie
fantasy
ends.
adventure.
Spoilers for the second Tron film. The second Tron movie ends with Jeff Bridges' son escaping the computer world with a lady who is a computer program. And she's a special computer program that can reprogram herself. It's, you know, it's like a whole thing. But the whole thing is that they took a computer lady out of the computer and into the real world. And so it leaves you with this feeling of just like, wow, what the fuck? Like, wow, there's a lot that they could do with this. And the weird thing about the new Tron movie is that it is that. But like, from reading a lot of the coverage about it, and this is exactly, you know, this is some of the stuff they said leading up to the movie's release, so it's not some big surprise. They don't, like, none of those people are in it. They have stepped away from that story completely and are like kind of just retelling the same story in its place with none of the actual natural narrative hooks that they had to work with. And have turned it into just like this vague corporate, you know, these two corporations that are warring with computer people or whatever. And more of the computer people and light cycles and all this other stuff have made it out into the real world. And like the thing about Tron is that it is this visually impressive, crazy world inside the computer.
Oh, man,
and so when you take all of that and just put it onto a city street, it's about, it's who the fuck cares? And all that stuff is in the trailer where you're like, dude, they used a light cycle to cut a cop car in half. And you're like, that's sick. That's it. There you go. Like you've done the 4 things you can do with Tron shit in the real world, right? And so I do want to see the movie. The soundtrack I found to be really disappointing. The soundtrack is out there, and you know, obviously it's hard to fully talk about the soundtrack without having seen the film. Like I'll acknowledge that, but I think that, like, to me, the soundtrack doesn't sound like, hey, and for all the pomp and all the like, and they're naming it. They're going by the name 9 Inch Nails for this. The first time they've done this for any of their soundtrack work, because they've done this and this and this. And then you go and listen to it, and it's like, okay, like you have made a slightly more distorted version of like.
Okay.
Like it is very similar to the previous movie's soundtrack in terms of just like overall aesthetic and tone and stuff. It's just red. It's just like, and by that I mean they turned the distortion up and redlined it a little bit. So it's like you get a little bit of a grindy kind of thing going on. But I don't, you know, I'm not a big 9 Inch Nails guy, but this doesn't evoke the things that, like, I think 9 Inch Nails as a name. And you know, maybe 9 Inch Nails has just gone to shit and they're just soft now. Maybe Trent Reznor is a fucking pussy now. Whatever, I don't know. I haven't listened to the most recent stuff, so maybe it all sucks in the same way or something. But it sounds like they sat down and they listened to the Daft Punk stuff and said, yeah, we can do that, and then they did it. And you listen to it and you're like, yeah, okay. Like, this is not, you know, like, I think that there's probably...
Tell us how you really feel.
Like, maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but I just feel like Trent Reznor is capable of way more than that. Ooh. And so it feels like this very restrained, like, okay, yeah, I don't know, you just kind of did this. Like, it just doesn't feel... It doesn't feel like an event the way that soundtrack...
I'm on it, man.
The previous soundtrack did. And they tried to present it as that the entire way, and you know, like, again, making a big deal about them going, you know, calling themselves 9 Inch Nails with this or whatever. Like, yeah, I don't know. You just listen to it and you're just like, okay, yeah, I don't know. This is real synthy stuff, and yeah, it's just okay. You put, you know, they used more drums than Daft Punk did on their soundtrack, so that's good in its own way, I suppose.
Motivational speech.
But it's just, I don't know, like, you know, like that stuff. I think, like, I was hoping for a more distinctive sound, and I don't feel like they did that. I don't feel like they did that with that soundtrack. And again, maybe in the context of the movie, it will. I'm sure it'll work fine because it's just like a bunch of generic electronic, just like boom, 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 it is what it is.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And I think that'll work fine in the context of that film. But I was kind of just hoping for something a lot crazier, or I don't know.
Okay. It takes me a minute to turn off the radio station,
but I know
dude.
that's a very 90s Nine Inch Nails kind of thing that's been long gone in its own weird way. But yeah, I don't know.
Wrong button.
The whole thing is just leaving me cold. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, dude. Oh my god,
I feel like I should be like the weird target audience for this fucking shit. And instead, I'm just looking at it and going like, I feel like you're leveraging all of the Tron stuff in the worst and most boring way possible.
Dude, why are you...
Where they're just like, what if AI was bad? Just, whoa, are you fucking shit? Like, that's not in the fucking...
Yeah,
I don't reality,
know what that
bitch.
was, dude. Look,
that's not science fiction, motherfucker.
I can't do this without the radio.
We're doing that every day.
I gotta stop. I got it. It's every
and so the idea that like somehow
no,
the Dillingers
I'm not doing
formed their own corporation,
I got
even though
8 buttons before
there was a Dillinger working for Encom in the whatever. And now I'm just expecting too much from a Tron sequel.
No, I just woke up.
They're not doing right by the
I'm trying to play
Dillinger in the original film, and like I get it. Whatever.
Come on, down. No, that's up. Down is up. Up is down, dude. Down is up. Up is down. Down is up. Up is down. Down is up. Down. Why are you not?
Well, I will still see it at some point, and hopefully, maybe I will be widely wrong. But like, from reading what that movie is, and
turn off radio.
They haven't really talked a lot about the plot, other than
that takes me a few seconds.
Jared Leto's a fucking computer man. He's in the real world. What the fuck? Like that's basically the entire thing that they've said. Like looking at the actual plot of the film, and now that there's more direct stuff out there, I just look at it and go like, yeah, that's okay, yeah.
It's too much.
It just feels very thoughtless, or it feels very
is fucking it up.
Thin. I don't know, whatever, man. I want to see it. I feel an obligation to see it, which is weird because there's like I've said it before, but like there's a lot of additional Tron media.
Dude, I just want to
uprising
radio
like
off.
The cartoon.
Radio off. It's one button.
There's been comic books that I've purchased over the years and whatever else, but there's like a lot of the Tron side stuff I've not been drawn to, and I'm feeling that same feeling here. But I think because it is technically a film and a sequel and whatever else, I do feel this weird draw to see it. But yeah, Maddie is asking, is Bruce Boxleitner in it? Apparently no. Apparently, the weird thing is that this movie still holds elements of, like, from reading up on it, it sounds like that the movie does still hold a very, like, few elements of the original script that was written as a sequel to the previous
down is up is down, dude.
Like, originally, it was like, okay, we're going to write a sequel to this because obviously it ends on a, it ends with something that you could write a whole fucking movie about. Like, you look at it and go, like, you could easily make another one of those. And then, there was a writer's strike, and like, there's been a billion things, like a lot of movies, a lot of stuff gets derailed along the way. And so at some point, the actors that were in the previous movie were shook loose from it for lack of, they've said like, oh, there just wasn't interest there or whatever. I think Bruce Boxleitner was just like, fuck this. At some point, I'm an old man, leave me alone. I was barely in the second one. What the fuck why are we wasting time here? And what the guy Garrett, whatever the fuck his name is, that played Sam Flynn, and then Olivia Wilde is doing Olivia Wilde things. I don't know, she's probably too busy for it or whatever. But like at some point, it sounds like that they were writing because I think there's like a really good setup there for like, okay, you've got people out in the real world, you've got a computer lady out in the real world, but you've still got this army of bad dudes that want to inflict their vision on the real world, and what are you going to do about it when they find a way out? Like, that's a very easy story to tell based on the second Tron movie. And so when you look at this and you go like, oh, okay, like they're still kind of trying to tell that story, but also they have completely disconnected it from all of the connective tissue that existed in that second film. I don't know. Again, you know, I don't hold Tron Legacy to be some fucking sacred tome or whatever, but I do think if you're going to make a sequel to a Tron movie that is so easily and readily connected to the thing that existed before, if you're telling a whole different story and this whole different timeline, like go for it, man. Fucking make it work. There are a billion computers out there. There's fucking people on weird motorcycles in every single one of them, if you want them to be, right? So, you know, I think that there's a billion stories you could tell, but to tell such a similar story and throw away all of that shit, I think is just, I don't know. It's irresponsible to the franchise, I think, to some extent, but whatever, man. And Jared Leto looks creepy when I mean, he's a perfect, Jared Leto in some ways, I think, is the perfect fucking dude to play I'm the guy who's out of the computer and what is all this stuff, because his face is creepy as shit, dude. When you look at Jared Leto's face, you believe it. You go like, this guy's not from, I don't know what the fuck is going on with him, but I don't fucking like him and I don't fucking trust him. Like, he looks like a fucking unsettling, shady fucking guy. And so, like, he's just this greasy fucking computer man. So, you know, whatever. Like, maybe he's, like, perfectly fucking cast, because I think that dude, like, super fucking sucks. Before, yeah, I mean, and then you get into the allegations, and you're like, oh, right, oh, he probably actually is fucking gross. So maybe he's perfect to play the fucking, what is this? What is all of this around me, computer man, who is trying to find his way through what's it like to have feelings or whatever the fuck, right? So, what's it like to be human? He's finally able to answer the question. So I don't know, man. That's how I feel about Tron. And that's how I felt about Tron for like the last month. Like, as I've been like re-Troning myself, like watching some of the stuff and reading about the new movie and everything, going through this process, it has just been exasperating. So yeah, I don't know.
Getting better.
I'll see that at some point, and maybe we can talk about it. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about actual video games, not like weird fake Hollywood video games.
Oh no!
Okay, be right back. It's still pretty sunny here in sunny Southern California, but you know, now that we're getting into October, you get a couple of cool days here and there. You're like, oh wait, it rained all day today, and oh wait, the cloud cover didn't burn off, and it's starting to get actually genuinely sort of cold at night. So, you know, I'm swapping the wardrobe around a little bit. And, you know, sometimes you need something that's warm, durable, and built to last. That's where Quince delivers every single time with wardrobe staples that'll carry you through the season. Quince has just the kind of fall staples that you'll actually want to wear on repeat. Like these 100% Mongolian cashmere that are just $60 starting. Classic fit denim, real leather, wool outerwear that looks sharp and it holds up. They got a suede trucker jacket. If you're looking for a trucker jacket, you know, if you're looking to throw some layers on. And Quince partners directly with ethical factories and top artisans, so they cut out the middlemen to deliver premium quality at half the cost of similar brands. They sent a few things out, and I've been, you know, wearing some of these t-shirts and a nice kind of like a thin hoodie, because let's face it, it's never going to get actually cold here. But it is, you know, it's going to get California cold here and there. So sometimes, you know what that means? Long sleeves. And they've got some nice stuff, stretchy, well-fitting, that, you know, kind of holds up really well in that type of weather as well. So layer up this fall with pieces that feel as good as they look. Go to quince.com/JeffG for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too. That's QUINCE.com/JeffG, free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/JeffG. We're in the middle of it, video games. I mean, Battlefield 6 is out later this week. I've gotten my hands on that, and I will have something to say about that at some time in the future. But today is not the day. They posted up the Call of Duty Black Ops 7 beta. That is still running as like an open beta right now for the next day or two. I think this is the first time they've ever put zombies into the beta, but it's the competitive multiplayer as well, and that's where I've been spending most of my time with it. I put a video up on YouTube last week if you want to see it in action. It is, but they've added like more maps to the beta since then, and raised the level cap so you're unlocking a little bit more of the gear and able to kind of mess around with different loadouts and guns and whatever. It's interesting, you know, the game is set in like 2035, and so it is the future, but it's not really the future. And so there's nothing in it. It's got drones, like their version of the future is, yo, there are drones. Yo, there's like one of the things you can call down in multiplayer is a robot dog with a gun on it, and it stomps around and shoots dudes, you know? I think the most futuristic it probably gets that I've seen is, at least in the competitive multiplayer, campaign, whatever. They put the perfect dark gun in it as like as a score streak. So if you get a set number of kills, you can get a gun that lets you see through walls and shoot dudes. You know, it's limited use and limited fire, you know, like all of that stuff. It is not as maybe ridiculous as seeing through walls and shooting a frickin' railgun would be otherwise. But other than that, it's like over the next 10 years, soldiers are going to learn how to do parkour. That is the big innovation. That is the thing that they've added here, and it's weird because it's just from a Call of Duty perspective, it is this very subdued movement ability that they've done more with in the past. Like they've done full-on wall running, they have done jump jets and weird sideways dashes and stuff in the past as well. Here, if you see a window and it's up a story and there's a wall below it, you can just run up to that wall and double tap and go pop pop and hop up and clamber up to that window. That's basically, you know, you can come at it from an angle and you can kind of dive at the side of the wall and then jump off and climb the window that way. And I think the like, hey, let me crawl in a second story window thing is actually tactically the most interesting thing that it's there for, and it does kind of change some of the pace and it makes some of those higher perches not as safe as maybe they were in past games. Not that they were ever fully safe, because all of them would always have two doors in, and you know you're always getting shot from behind the minute you start peeking out a window. But it does kind of create a new, you know, a new kind of counter to guy in window, the dreaded man in window with gun. The other thing they do is the thing that I expected that they would do, is that there are pathways in the level that have no ground. And so it's just walls, and you got to go, oh, okay, I can just like dive at this wall, jump, 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 and then I'm on the ground again. Yay. And it feels very phony, because why would this base be laid out in such a way where like, there's just no ground here? I don't know. And it feels very like it's the gimmicky version of this. It's the same way they designed some of these maps when they did full-on wall running. in like Infinite Warfare. And it's some of the same types of tricks that they used in some of those games as well, when they have done wall running and all of that in the past. And that stuff I am a little cool on, but the ability to just bounce off of every wall and kind of get extra height and whatever else is interesting, because it does give you, you know, like there are some areas that are not designed as blatantly like here's a straight path but it's all wall. It's like, oh, there's some walls in here and there's kind of there's two ways to walk around it, but you can kind of hop through real quick and get behind somebody. And you know, there are interesting ideas in some of the map design that are built around the wall jump stuff. And so it's a bit of a mix there, where I think some of it is really like underwhelming, and you just go like, yep, this is exactly how I thought these levels were going to be laid out, based on you saying that you could do these little triple jump wall things. And there are actual other parts of it where it's like, oh, okay, now like I can jump up to the top of this staircase. Like if I'm running at a staircase and you see the side wall of it, I can, you know, sometimes you might run to the low part of it and jump over and clamber over that. But now you can go up to the higher point and maybe get behind somebody and do, you know, there's like interesting kind of interplay with that, just because you have like that additional level of mobility. I don't think it's a game changer, though. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, this is completely, you know, like, in a lot of ways, this feels like a very, it feels very similar to Black Ops 6, which is the previous year's game, which has a lot of the same types of mobility things. It does not have the wall jump thing, but it does have sideways running and diving and dashing and all of that stuff is in here as well. And I think that stuff I thought was really fun last year, and so that stuff is still here. There are a few interesting... Oh, I guess actually, you know what? While we're talking about futuristic gadgets that maybe don't exist just yet, because it's a lot of drone shit, but, you know, in addition to the gun, what sees through walls, there is also active camo that you can pop. You know, it's one of the abilities you can choose to put on your, you know, loadout that will let you become Predator-style invisible. You know, not fully invisible, but you could maybe trick some people with it type of invisible. And you can have that for 8 or 9 seconds, or, well, I don't know actually how long it is. The other thing they added is sort of like, they did a thing years ago where the perks themselves could be leveled up, and so you would unlock Perk Pro versions of the perks that were slightly better. And what they've done here is they've added a system called overclocks, and so as you use some of the equipment on your loadout, like your score streaks, or your grenades can level up. And so
it's hard to keep
you
steady,
there are two things you can eventually unlock, one at level 2, one at level 3. And then you can choose which one of them you want to use.
Dark Souls.
And so for like sticky grenades for Semtex,
GTA Dark Souls.
One of them is the explosion is bigger. You're like, yeah, that sounds good. But for like a UAV,
I gotta take a break,
choose to make the UAVs slightly more resilient.
Radio off.
Or you can
turn
choose
radio
to
off,
make them
dude.
cost
Please,
less,
radio off.
meaning you can call them in more frequently.
Radio off, please.
And so you can make your dropping down
Radio
dog
off.
with gun on it. You know, you can make it more resilient, or give it like a longer battery. I think those are the two options. You can give it a better battery so it stays on the battlefield longer, or you can make it more resilient to enemy fire so that it doesn't get taken out as easily, or whatever. And so like that's the sort of stuff they're doing with it's score streaks, and it's like the grenades and tactical stuff. And your L1, R1, whatever that is called, the invisibility is one of those. But the like throw out a box that's got bullets in it. It's like, what if it charged faster and you could throw out more boxes? Like that's what the overclock stuff is. It's like, what if this thing was slightly better? And then you're like, okay, I like that. And then you're like, what if it was slightly better in a different way? And you're like, well, now I've got to choose. And it's fine. You know, grenade blow up better. Or like, hey, this grenade isn't something you can normally cook in your hand, but if you take this overclock, then you can. So if you want it that way, you can. And they've retuned a lot of the stuff. Like in last year's game, there was if you chose all blue perks, then whenever you would spawn after getting killed, you would see enemies through walls for like 2 seconds. It was just enough to give you a sense of like, where is everybody? Okay, here they are. They've removed the ability to see them through walls, and instead you just kind of see the directions of them on your mini map for a few seconds, which is something that was like people felt was like relatively overpowered when that game first came out last year, that they tuned a couple of times and eventually stopped messing with it. And so this is the big change to that. They've changed that system in a few different ways to give you some more options there, and that's it's welcome. But again, I don't think any of that stuff is necessarily a dramatic rewriting of the way Call of Duty exists, right? Like the maps I think are pretty good from what I've seen so far, and overall it's fine. I don't know. As I'm playing it, I'm like, oh, cool, this is new stuff that I haven't seen. So that's nice because I played a lot of matches on the maps from last year, and it would be nice to have new maps. And so, that's my primary draw here. Is it's like, oh, here are new areas and new windows for me to jump through and shoot dudes, and I think it's pretty effective at that. So that's nice. I don't think that this is something that is this is not something that is going to like change your mind about the very existence of Call of Duty, but I don't think anything would at this point here. So, yeah, if you're on board with Call of Duty, they are continuing to. The truck is still running. They are still driving it. It has got a bunch of new maps on it, and the new maps seem good. Yeah. So
you gotta pause it to comment.
That seems cool. But yeah.
Trying to figure it out.
It doesn't. Yeah. Like last year's game, the Omni movement stuff, I actually thought was like a pretty major change in terms of just the overall feel of the game. And this, I don't think there's anything as dramatic about what they're doing. About what they're doing this year. But that beta is still running. Like, yeah, it's open now. Like they did a few days for pre-orders, and now I think it's just open to whoever. So if you wanted to go download. I guess if you don't own any Call of Duty, you would download Warzone, the free thing, and then that would come with it because it's all packed into the launcher for last year's game, which is shitty. They should stop doing that. I was hoping they were going to stop doing that because they separated some of the older games out a few months ago to kind of reduce the install size. And I'm like, great, they should rip all these apart again and stop doing this because it's a waste of time. Yep. But alas, they have not done that yet. And then, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's shooter season or whatever, right? Like the Black Ops 7 beta feels, we'd have to go back and check to see who announced first, but it does seem like extremely strategic of them to be running the Black Ops 7 beta all the way up to the release day of Battlefield 6, which is out, I guess, technically Friday the 10th, but it's, I think it's going to be one of those situations where depending on where you're playing and when it unlocks or whatever, there'll be people playing it on the 9th. Some people have it already. Some people got their hands on discs, and they're saying that the PS5 version the game is fully on the disc, which is interesting and something I want to know more about, but can't talk to you about any of that for a few days. So I'm very curious about that little factoid that has been getting around. And yeah, I don't know, man. Shooters. The Battlefield stuff feels slightly recontextualized by the announcement that EA is going to be acquired by Saudi Arabia, and
wrong button.
The Black Ops stuff feels slightly recontextualized by a lot of these Game Pass changes that we're probably going to spend a lot of the rest of this podcast
That's a dick. You guys didn't fix
talking
that.
about. So it's like, it's
Glitch.
funny, you know, as
No,
we're
that's
leading
a
up
dick,
to like
dude.
what should be two of the largest games of the year, and they're gonna duke it out and battle it out. It's like, no, they're both like shooting themselves in the foot in a few different ways. But you know, I guess the thing I'd say about Battlefield is that stuff is not going to take effect in the game for another, you know, year or so because the acquisition hasn't closed yet. Whereas the Black Ops 7 stuff is right here, right now. Hey, you know, you need to be paying more for Game Pass if you want this for free and all this other stuff.
The more you commit, yep.
I don't know. And then like, well, like I'm thinking other shooter stuff. Like Tarkov is supposed to be on Steam pretty soon here, right? They're trying to. I know that they're trying to have some kind of push. I was reading patch notes
You
for
overcommitted. Yeah, it's Bloodborne,
like it
dude. Yeah.
They were calling it the soft core update, which is very funny, but it's probably what they need if they want any actual normal humans to ever play that game.
1, 2, 3. It's
but
1,
yeah,
2,
I don't know. Tarkov just says
3,
coming soon
4,
on
5,
Steam.
6
They still don't have a date listed on their Steam
dude,
page,
6
but it's supposed to be happening pretty soon. And of course, Arc Raiders, which is due out at the end of the month.
What the fuck, bro?
I'm very intrigued to
6 buttons, bro.
see that.
The 3D space, and it's weighted.
The word Arc Raider, the name of the game Arc Raiders has been banned from both Battlefield and Call of Duty's text chat. And I saw Insider Gaming reached out to Activision to say, hey, what gives? Because you can type Battlefield 6 into the Call of Duty chat.
That's not fun by flying this
they wrote back and said, Arc
floaty
piece of shit, I think it's, it's something that they're fixing.
This
the word
tough.
Arc.
6
and I racked my brain for a little while last night trying to figure this out. I'll load up the Insider Gaming story so I can get the exact statement that they got from the exact quote that they got from Activision about it. Where is this? Our text-based moderation system has ARC, A-R-C, set as an alt of an inappropriate word. Paired with Raiders, the system flagged the phrase, those filters have been adjusted. So, I don't know. Now I'm afraid to say the word ARC with the letter C, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what we had a list back at the old job. The list of banned phrases and statements and like the stuff that they had put together that were like racial slurs and alternative spellings for racial slurs and all of that was a long and insane list that you look at and go like, I get why most of this stuff is here, but there'll be like 5 or 6 things on there that you're like, what does this mean? Like, I almost don't want to know what this means. What the fuck? Like, it was really crazy, but it sounds like it's just something that tripped an automatic system in like both games, and that they have made the adjustment. So it doesn't seem like they're actually trying to stop people from talking about Arc Raiders or whatever. But yeah, Arc Raiders has, I mean, it seems like a game that has a ton of potential. People were excited about it last time there was a playable going around. It seemed like that the people were digging it. So I'm hopeful for that, and we'll see how that all goes. I suppose. Let's take another break. We'll get into the news after this.
No, going up too much. No, you're going up too much.
Okay. Short break. It's fall, and the entire schedule has changed. You know, it's back to school, slightly shorter days. It's getting a little darker earlier, all this stuff. Finding time to cook can be a little bit tough. That's why Factor is so great. Their chef-prepped, dietitian-approved meals make it easy to stay on track and enjoy something comforting and delicious no matter how hectic the season gets. And it does get hectic. You know, you got kids running around that. Yeah, I'm helping kids finish homework, and then at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, wait, I haven't eaten in hours. And I don't have time to eat because I've got to get in here and get to work while the kids are asleep. And so being able to, turn to Factor and get some variety, you know. They've got a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost.
Computer!
Just makes it nice and easy to do, you know. The the stuff just, they ship it to you. You keep it cool. You put it in the microwave for a little bit. And then, you put it on a plate, or, hey, if you're living that lifestyle, if you're about that life, you can eat it right out of the container. That's what I do. I don't know. They support your wellness goals. They've got even more GLP-1 friendly meals now, and new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good-for-you fats. They got global flavors, so if you're looking for Asian-inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more, that's right. Factor's got it. From more choices to better nutrition, 97% of customers say that Factor helped them live a healthier life. Feel the difference, no matter your routine. Eat smart at factormeals.com/JeffG50off and use code JeffG50off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. What the? Wow. I wish I had. Man, I should sign up. You gotta get me free breakfast for 1 year. That's code JeffG50off at factormeals.com or 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto-renewing subscription purchase. Yo! Xbox flushed itself down the toilet. Did you see this? That's the news. See you tomorrow. What the fuck, man? Okay, so, gosh. Where to begin? It's been an interesting week for Xbox. They have made some notable changes to their offering under a post that they decided to name Updates to Xbox Game Pass, introducing Essential, Premium, and Ultimate plans. They have raised the price on Game Pass by quite a bit, to where now, if you want the highest tier of service, if you want Xbox Live Ultimate, that is now $29.99 a month. $30 a month, $360 a year, because they do not offer any kind of annual discount or annual subscription. I think they are only selling it by the month right now. I don't even know if you can sign up for a year. They're trying to frame this as it's more choice. We love it when players have more choice, and this is now the only tier that will get Xbox games on day one. On all platforms, and so the other versions of this are now getting less, or rather, they've carved out a different way to balance this. They're adding some things that they did not have before. Some of this is stuff that existed on the Sony version of their higher tier subscription services, like Ubisoft Plus Classics, meaning a bunch of older Ubisoft games. And EA Play was already there, but that's still there. They will also give you a Fortnite Crew subscription, an $11.99 a month value, which is the subscription they sell to Fortnite that comes with some. It's like you get like 1,000 V-Bucks a month, and you get the battle pass, maybe among other things. I'm not 100% clear on how the Fortnite Crew subscription works, but they are adding that to the service. You will get unlimited cloud gaming at the best quality with the shortest wait times on Ultimate. And they say 75 plus day one games a year, including all Xbox games published, all Xbox published games on day one. And that you will have access to over 400 games at that tier. On the other tiers, you know, you can get premium, which is just 200 games, and you will get new Xbox published games within a year of launch. So you will not get them day one, but they will be added to the service within a year of their launch, with one notable exception. If you scroll down to the fine print, basically they say, except for Call of Duty. Which is a way to go, I suppose. And then at the essential tier, which is like $10 a month, you will get cloud streaming, you will get in-game benefits, including for Riot games. You'll be able to play online on consoles, and you'll be able to, and they're also so, dude, so one of the things they did with Game Pass is that if you got a discount on DLC for games that were on Game Pass, you got like, it was like 10% off or something. And so if you were buying Call of Duty currency or whatever, you would get 10% off that purchase as a Game Pass subscriber. They have eliminated that, and that's not just for Call, like people first noticed it on Call of Duty, but it is something that is across the board. That they have eliminated that discount from the service, and now instead, like they're the way they're kind of waving it away and going like, oh no, we're doing that, we're not doing that. Instead, you get Xbox rewards points, and so if you're on the ultimate tier, you get 4 times the reward points that people on the essential tier get. But even still, you're capped at earning up to $100 a year in the store with rewards on Ultimate. And at the base level, it's $25. So, like, it's... That's not the same thing. That is not the same thing. Not even a little bit. Bloomberg ran an article kind of in the wake of the Game Pass increase, trying to say, hey, you know, one of the reasons you're seeing this increase is because Game Pass cut into Call of Duty sales to a great degree, and I believe they got a quote from. Let's see who this source was. According to a former employee,
yeah, you got to take your eyes off your player model,
who asked not to be identified, discussing internal estimates.
Look ahead.
Xbox lost more than 300. The exact phrasing. I'll just use that to not introduce any more ambiguity into this. Bloomberg says Xbox gave up more than $300 million in sales of Call of Duty on console and PCs last year, according to one of the former employees who asked not to be identified, discussing internal estimates. And so it sounds like they talked to someone who said, hey, you know, and their take on it is that, oh, by putting it on Game Pass, $300 million just didn't come in. That doesn't seem like it lines up. And I think people that kind of dug into some of that phrasing and that specific number kind of found that it didn't necessarily go that way. Matt Piscatella from Circana, you know, kind of noted, I think even when Call of Duty was first hitting Game Pass last year and we were all wondering, like, is this going to, you know, what is this going to do for Game Pass adoption rates and all this other stuff, is, you know, like it seems like that, you know, based on from, you know, Circana's view into these numbers, there was no like lasting bump in Game Pass subscriptions because of Call of Duty. There was a short-lived something there, but it sounds like that it did not translate into a sustained increase in subscriptions. It also did not increase hardware sales. But also, it was something that, you know, like the engagement for last year's game was really strong. It was still leading in sales on other platforms. And so, like, did it carve into Xbox sales? I'm sure, yes. Like, why? Like, just, you know, common sense would dictate that surely there were some people who would have bought the game who instead subscribed to Game Pass. And I think that maybe what we're looking at here is that there were not enough of those. And so as a result now, we're seeing carve-outs for like, hey, not only do you have to pay more to get any day one games, but now even this mid-tier that is going to get games within 12 months of release is now like we are carving Call of Duty specifically out from that. These numbers, this 300 million and like this like theoretical lost sales and all of that, those arguments start to sound like when people say how much money was lost due to piracy. You can't always know. Like, would every single person who pirated this game have purchased it, or did they only play it because it was free? Game Pass, same deal. How many of these people were actual Call of Duty consumers previous to this, and this led to this? The number's not 0, but the number is probably also not 300 million. So that's the new ask on Microsoft, and I look at Game Pass, and to me, and I think to a lot of people, the value is purely in getting to play new games at launch. Their back catalog is fine; it's got stuff in it that is worth playing, but it's a lot of stuff that you've probably played before, and it's a lot of stuff that's not hard to come by. These are not expensive games that always exist on that tier of service. And so the games that are getting cycled in and out of the back catalog, it's a lot of indie stuff that is going to be $15 at most. And how many of those games are you going to play anyway? And so like the value gets dicier there. These are all, games that are perennial favorites in Steam sales, like that sort of thing, right? The games that Microsoft has gotten day one, the third-party stuff that they get day one, sometimes it's good stuff. Sometimes it's not good stuff. Both PlayStation Plus and Game Pass both launched FBC Firebreak on day one. And that was not a great launch. That was not a great launch for a game. You could if you were trying to put your best foot forward and talk about the great benefits of Game Pass, you would say, we got Remedy's last game on day one. And you'd be like, oh, yeah. And you'd be like, oh, but it's FBC Firebreak and it launched kind of fucked up. And, I don't know. They're still fixing it. And, like, that game's not necessarily bad. But, it's a much better game if you paid $0 for it. It's a great Game Pass game, I suppose. And so, like, increasingly, and this is going to be different for different people. When I was talking about this on the bonus show last week, I said much the same thing, and I still stick to that if you're the sort of person who all of these games speak to you in a very direct way, if you're already paying for the Fortnite subscription, and you're already paying for Game Pass, like, then you can cancel you can cancel the Fortnite thing and still get it as part of this. And it's like, that's not going to be the full offset of doubling the price, but that's a $12 thing that they're, selling over at Epic that is now rolled into this $30 a month subscription. If you're the sort of person who plays the Riot games that gets the benefits from Game Pass, if you're interested in all of these old Ubisoft games, if you play Fortnite, if you want to play day one games from Xbox, $30 a month, $360 a year, there is still a way to do that math that if you play enough of that stuff, $360 a year is less than what you would spend buying all of those games individually. But how many, like, the problem is that that's always been the case for Game Pass. It's like, if you care about this specific stuff, it's great value. But, like, by raising the price and changing a lot of these deals, like, the potential audience that is going to, like, touch every single part of that subscription is smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. I want day one games. I want Xbox's games on day one. I don't care about Fortnite. As a player, like, as an industry, like, I'm interested in Fortnite or whatever. What's Fortnite up to? I'm interested in it in some sick way. But, like, I don't play Fortnite. I don't intend to start playing Fortnite. And I certainly don't intend to start playing enough Fortnite to want 1,000 V-Bucks every month to buy, what I don't care. I just don't care. So it's a waste. Like, here's a subscription benefit that I do not give a shit about, Older EA games, by the time that they appear on this service, I've usually played them. Older Ubisoft games, like the 9,000 Assassin's Creed games that are appearing on this service, I have already played the ones of those I want to play and skipped the other ones. And so that's like pretty low value to me as a player. And again, this is where it becomes complicated, right? Because I think if you're like, dude, I just want to play a bunch of video games and I haven't ever played one before, or, you know, I haven't played video games in 15 years. Great, you should play here. Sign up for this and play Far Cry 3. Or buy Far Cry 3 for like $4. Another option potentially at your disposal, you know? So it's just like a lot of this stuff becomes, it's a very weird offering now. And like also, it's really hard to feel good about their promise of day one games in a world where Microsoft just canceled a bunch of their own games. And they have games like Fable that are just like spinning in some kind of like, who knows what the status of Fable is. It'll come out eventually, right? Or maybe they'll just cancel that too. But in a world where Contraband and Perfect Dark and like a lot of these other games are just getting axed, what is the first party lineup? Eventually there'll be an Elder Scrolls game again. And that month will be probably a pretty okay month to be on Game Pass. Or you could just buy it for $70 and not think about it. So again, that $360 a year becomes this math problem of like, do you believe that the Xbox family of studios, as well as, you know, whatever third-party deals they cut, because there are third-party games that do debut on Game Pass, though I feel like those have been more often than not kind of B-tier games that you're like, it's like the feeling of like a Firebreak or an Outriders, the youngest loot shooter in the world, where you're like, I'm glad I didn't pay for this. Like, this game is a totally okay game to play, but boy, it's a good thing I didn't pay $60 for it. Like, that's a lot of the day one stuff that shows up on Game Pass from third party is stuff that you kind of think about in that frame, right? It's like, oh, here's a game that like it's cool that I was able to play this, but I don't. It's so cool that I didn't have to pay $60 to play this fucking thing. And so I really think a lot of that offering does come down to, do you think that Xbox game studios and its affiliated companies, Activision and Bethesda, and, you know, I guess that's it, right? Do you think they will ship enough games in a year that you feel you must play on day one to cover $360 a year in games? Or would you be better off buying Call of Duty separately if that's a game you play and going like, okay, well, I'm only interested in playing Call of Duty and Outer Worlds 2, so I'm not going to subscribe to Game Pass. Or like, I'm played Indiana Jones and then I played this, and, you know, like, are there enough games in a calendar year?
Controllers, headsets.
Are there enough games in a quarter? You know, $90 every 3 months. Do they put out enough games in a quarter to where if you broke it down that way, that there's one game a quarter that you go, oh, this is a game, this is a must-play game, I'm just going to play it this way because I'm already subscribed to that? Or would you rather just buy that game separately for not $90, unless it's a multiplayer game and you're buying all the DLC because you're, right? Just point blank, as an Xbox player, all 40 of you, does that math work out? Like, that's the question you have to ask now. And I think increasingly, I think you're going to find more players that, like, when they really do the math on it, they go, absolutely not. Like, no. There will still be some people who go like, oh, you know, again, as a Fortnite player, as a this, as that, like, this all adds up and it works out to my benefit. Great. Then great, man. Fucking sign up for this thing. It's there. Now, you know, extrapolate that a little bit to like, what if you're not playing games on an Xbox? And there is still a PC version of Game Pass that is kind of grandfathered in the middle here in a weird way. at a different rate for that. But also a lot of these games are continuing to come out on PlayStation and other platforms. And are you going to play games on Xbox anymore? Because I think that's the next step in this flow chart of like deciding what you care about and what you think about now. Are you like, okay, well, I'm not going to sign up for Game Pass anymore? And once you've cut loose of Game Pass, you then have to go like, do I give a shit about Xbox as a platform anymore? Especially in a world where more and more of their games are going to appear on PlayStation. And in PC, of course, but with PlayStation, you would also get the benefit of first-party Sony releases if you care about that sort of thing. And so, like, the whole ecosystem just feels poisoned to me now. Of like, and there are people who are in it, right? And if you're in it, then the cost is already sunk, right? You already spent money on a console. You already, you built up a library and a friends list and whatever else. And so, there are reasons to just go like, well, whatever. Someone wrote me this morning when the podcast was going live and just said, it's too late. I sold my Xbox and got a second PlayStation 5, which I think is crazy. But, but also I guess I have two PlayStation 5s as well. A regular one and a Pro. But, as we start to warm up here over the next couple of years into like the next hardware, the selling point of an Xbox, I'd think, for a long time now has been like, oh, you could get Game Pass. But that advantage is not nearly as strong as it has been. And so why would you buy an Xbox? Why would they make an Xbox that was another closed system and all of that stuff? That leads us on to kind of the rest of, what we've already talked about with the next generation of consoles and what is an Xbox going to be and in the future, what are they going to do? There was a rumor going around that Xbox was getting out of hardware.
Get out of the damn way.
And, normally, rumors are around all the time, right? Like there's a bunch of shit swirling around all of the time. And by and large, publishers just go like, hey, we don't comment on this stuff. Rumors and speculation, no. We don't comment on this. This stuff has gotten to a point where this was Sunday. So on the weekend, over the weekend, Xbox gave a statement out to try to quell some of this stuff. Windows Central has a story saying, basically saying, hey, that there's rumors that they are exiting hardware and that the next Xbox has been canceled and blah, 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 which I think I would have told you then that's not going to happen. Microsoft felt compelled to actually issue a statement on this. We are actively investing in our future first-party consoles and devices designed, engineered, and built by Xbox. For more details, the community can revisit our agreement announcement with AMD. And goes back to the thing from June where they put out that video of Sarah Bond saying, hey, we're doing stuff with AMD. Why are
they making shit that does not sell, dude?
And,
Pretend? It's a fucking
but it does,
economy,
you do start to wonder again, like what is the future of Xbox? What is the
album covers
and like all of that stuff? The idea that they had to get out there and give a comment to say we're album still buyers. Here, I think says a lot about the current sentiment around the Xbox brand. Some of this stuff is, I think, wrapped up in confusion around there. This is an Xbox campaign. And, in another week here, next week, they're going to start selling that ROG Ally Xbox X, whatever the fuck that thing is called, that $1,000 thing, or the $600 version, if you will. And that's not going to play Xbox games in a traditional sense because it's a PC, because it's a Windows machine. And so it will not play your backwards compatible Xbox library. It will play games that over 1,000 of them are labeled Xbox Play Anywhere. And those games, your saves will come in and whatever else. But as we've talked about, third parties are not always on board with that scheme. And so if you have third-party Xbox games and you're buying this handheld Xbox, and you're like, this is an Xbox, then maybe you can play them in the cloud if it's on another different list of supported games. And there's like, I think, a lot of brand confusion that has happened in the lead up to that thing going on sale, and that stuff is not something that they've solved. It's not going to be a very, that's not going to be a huge product launch. It's not even Xbox's product launch. It's Asus. They're selling that thing. It's just a fucking PC that they have partnered with Xbox on to make it feel like an Xbox. And, Xbox is finally doing its full screen Windows, whatever. And we'll see if that stuff's any good. I'm interested to get my hands on one of those things, but not necessarily to play my Game Pass games or my quote unquote Xbox library. I'm sure it will run Steam Big Picture quite well.
You can sleep in a little bit, Bob. Forgot you were.
And so, yeah, it's a RetroArch will probably run really well on that thing. I can get retro achievements or whatever. So yeah, I think this stuff across the board is really like they're just kind of getting it from a few different angles. Obviously, the price hike on this stuff sucks. There's no you can try to walk through it in ways that will make sense, and like I said, for some players maybe it will. I think it sucks. That's not to say that I don't understand why they would think they have to do this, especially if they are not seeing increases in the subscriber base at the rate that they need to. There's only so much money they can spend on acquiring users before they go, oh shit, like this thing is not making money anymore, or it's not making as much money as it needs to, or whatever it is, for them to go, now we have to make a change. They tried it for a year with Call of Duty to see if Call of Duty, one of the biggest games on the planet, sales-wise, to see if Call of Duty would move the needle. It did not. So there you go. Right? They took a swing at it, and I think it's a good experiment for them to. I think it's a good experiment for them to do. It was a smart thing for them to try. I understand why they would go down the road they went down, and now they're at the end of that road, and they go, okay, now we know. We have the data. We have a full year of data about what Call of Duty does to Game Pass, and we don't like where these numbers are at. So we're going to change it. Or who knows? Like, ultimately we don't have the true insight into where their heads are with this stuff. But I think that is probably part of it. And also, again, just like this stuff, everything is getting more expensive right now, and all of this whole thing has just been a crazy mess. So I think they were smart to not touch Call of Duty and not do massive things to it in year one, and now for year two they're not going to touch the game, but they're going to touch all of the subscriptions and all of the other services and everything else around it. And we'll see what that does. But if the number of subscribers isn't growing, at some point you need to better monetize the people you have. And so you raise prices. And that's why they're trying to spin this as like, well, there's so many more features you get. You get Fortnite Crew, you get this, you get that, and they're trying to, in some ways saying like, hey, and if you don't want this stuff, we still have lower tiered subscriptions that, will hopefully you'll just buy Call of Duty and whatever. And then there are a lot of people who will want that, will need that in a disgusting way. The worst part about all of this for Xbox players is if you cancel all of this stuff completely, you can't play online on the console anymore. So you have to subscribe to one of these tiers, the essential tier being the the cheapest of all, just to play online at all. Which is something that the PC removes from the equation, at least for now. Unless can you imagine a world where they start trying to charge for online multiplayer on PC? They can't. They don't have the numbers. They don't have the install base. Like, there's not a high enough percentage of people buying games exclusively from the Xbox store over Steam or anything else to make that make sense. It would take an act of true collusion in order to get Steam and everyone else, Epic and everyone, to go like, yeah, we're all going to start charging for multiplayer on PC. And I just don't think that's going to happen. And so, this is something that all gets solved if the next Xbox is just a Windows machine, which is, I think it's not just my speculation on that. I think, there are a lot of people saying like, well, because I think increasingly the moves they're making only make sense if that's the case. But once they fully transition over to like all of these things are PCs, I can't imagine a scenario where they still try to charge for online multiplayer. Like they might try or say like, oh, this is still a console, but it's a console you can run Steam on and other stuff, but it's still a console. So you should sign up for Game Pass so you can play online. I don't like the hoops, like the mind hoops they would have to jump through to get there. I really don't. I don't know how they would pull it off. I'm not going to say I don't think that they would do it. I just don't know how the fuck they would pull it off. I don't know how they would get away with it without like ceding control, like they're shedding the rest of their audience or something, right? Not to say that they wouldn't think about it, but that's a hard one. And so we've been on this road for a long time, right? This is not a step I could say that I expected, but like I think in the context of everything else that has been happening with Xbox as a brand, as a company within Microsoft or what have you, like I look at all of this as this is all part of the same continuity, and you see where it all leads. And I think it eventually gets to a point where, when and if they sell a new console, that thing's going to have to be open like a PC, and it's going to fundamentally change the rest of the Xbox business, right? To where all of these things are just PCs. And then their problems are solved with like, oh, some of these games don't actually run on the handheld. It's like, well, when all they're shipping is just PC stuff and the console is still a PC, that whole conversation fades away. Or it changes. Actually, that conversation changes into one of backwards compatibility. And like, hey, I bought a lot of Xbox games. You've made it so I can play a lot of Xbox 360 games on generations of Xbox. Will I still be able to do that, or are they also going to close that door? Which I think would be the shits. I don't know that I have the answer to that. I know that they have valued backwards compatibility more than any of the other hardware manufacturers. And so I think it would be a real kind of, it would be another reputation hit for them to close that door. But the only way to keep that door open is to, employ like another level of software emulation on top of what they're doing or whatever, which is doable, Like I said, I can play original Halo 2 on the original Xbox on my PC, and it'll still connect to a fake Xbox Live where I can play it against other players. Like, there's ways to do this shit. But how many games will be supported and whatever else, there's just a ton of shit there that gets in the way, right?
Which delicious meal would Sir like?
So, yeah, I don't know. Like none of this adds up to anything good, right? Like, none of this is like, there's
Please
no
enjoy
real
your
way to
meal.
paint this as like a win for anyone over there. This is not a
Munch
there's
your way to bliss, sir.
it's
I
another
enjoyed
hit that they have
serving you,
taken
sir.
on the route that they're on. And they eventually, you know, they eventually get to a point where they're shipping new hardware, and strategically, I think it increasingly just makes sense for that hardware to be a fucking computer. Because I think they've, you know, like the Game Pass price increase is like another, like the idea of buying an Xbox console was already kind of a weird like math problem, right? Of like, okay, well, if you play these types of games and you play, then Game Pass is this and that, and you know, yeah, you're not getting the first party stuff from any of the other companies and whatever else, and also like, you know, a PlayStation 5 Pro is more powerful than this, and with everyone raising their prices on consoles and stuff, like the weird thing of the math of, you know, should you buy an Xbox Series X when those prices just went through the roof? Like, no, you know, the answer has I think pretty firmly become fucking no, dude.
I like to share too.
Unless you check so many boxes on the Game Pass form that you're like, this is a great deal. Otherwise, you should probably get a PlayStation, if not a PC. If you're scared of the PC and you don't want to learn it, you know, PlayStation gets you the ability to buy PlayStation games on day one. And, you know, all that Microsoft stuff's going to show up there too. Not day and date yet. Like Forza, they announced the new Forza for PlayStation, but they said specifically that it would not be there on launch day for the other versions, which I again, I still believe that to be more of a procedural and production situation as opposed to a philosophical or policy-based decision. I think if they could put Forza out on PlayStation on day one, they probably would. Because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? With all of the other like bullets you've pumped into the Xbox value proposition, it would be dumb for that to be the holdout. Yeah, we're not going to put Forza on the PlayStation on day one because we think people should buy it on Xbox. We think people should subscribe to Game Pass. Like, no, that's stupid. That's silly. They're on this road, and that road is them. You know,
okay.
They're going to be the world's largest. They already are the largest third-party publisher of console games on the planet. Between Call of Duty and, you know, whatever Minecraft sells in a year and stuff, I'm sure that they're already in a non-GTA year. No one is bigger. And so, you know, they continue to head down this road of leaning into that, and I think that's a respectable road to go down with the catalog of games they have in their portfolio. Yep, just put those games out. And the hardware stuff, they'll continue to do it for legacy reasons, but, you know, like, for how long? Like, at some point, that hardware just becomes vestigial. You know, the hardware business almost just becomes like an arm of the Windows business, right? Because if they're just selling Windows machines in different form factors that are designed to play games, that's still just a fucking computer, right? And so you can write Xbox on them all you want, and you can continue to call the app where you load up to load your games on PC, you can call that Xbox for the rest of time. Who cares? And once they've fully made that transition, there won't be this confusion and weird middle ground that they've been in for the last several years and probably at least one or two more, right? And so I think that like that makes sense for their business, and I think that there's probably a really great business there. It's just not a business that is making hardware the same way we think of console manufacturers making hardware. And then it comes down to which of the two things do you believe? Do you believe that that's them retreating from a space and like they couldn't cut it and blah, blah, blah? Or are they the first ones to get to the next fight?
It's in a manifold.
Because what role does a console play in modern gaming? And how much longer is it going to continue to play that role? What does Sony do to continue to evolve in a landscape that they are also kind of like, okay, what's the value of a PlayStation 5? Like, you know, we've been talking for weeks about how people are like bummed out about the PS5 from just a number of games shipping perspective, you know, like for as much as they say it's been their most profitable or, you know, the most revenue on a generation or whatever, like I don't feel like that people are like heralding the PS5 as like some amazing device with all of these amazing games. Instead, it's been more like, oh, this feels like a bunch of untapped potential, and they never put out enough games. And this, and, you know, games kind of dried up around COVID and never really came back the way that they seemed like they should have. And big games are getting, you know, more expensive and, you know, to make and to sell and to this and to that. And, you know, we hear all the talk about Sony being interested in making a handheld of their own, which you would assume to be part of Sony's kind of closed ecosystem, because I don't see them making a PC anytime soon.
So he marked the container with a spray can.
But would they?
It might be too late.
Eventually?
Ship's loading and it moves out tomorrow.
Maybe.
Okay, let's go peep it out. See what we can see.
People are giving Michael Pachter a lot of shit. What else is new? Pachter was out there saying that Sony is fucking up the worst. This was an interview with Yahoo Finance. And the quotes that Push Square pulled out of this
Man, those things are real high up. I ain't too good
is that he said that Sony was a terrible company and that they're currently, quote, blowing it in the games business. Here's the full quote here. No, Sony for sure. Not. No, like basically like, you know, should people buy Sony or should Sony be acquired? This was in the wake of the EA acquisition. Sony's a terrible company. They're actually blowing it in the games business. Games are moving to connect to TV. So think about all the participants that are going to deliver the way we get movies via Netflix. Forget the subscription model. Just think about iOS becoming on your TV. So free-to-play games on your TV. Who's going to deliver that? Cloud providers, AI. So at some point, he just became a buzzword machine and just started shouting different segments. It's always good when someone ends their arguments by just saying, hey, cloud providers, AI. But like that's, you know, and you know, people are clowning on Pachter and all of this stuff, and sure, yes, the way he phrased this was very, it's short-sighted of where things are right now, but there's going to be some kind of push for the cloud. There's like that stuff's not going to completely go away, and cloud, you know, Sony does have a cloud service, you know, no one knows about it, but they do have one. You can play their games in a streaming capacity and whatever else. But it does a lot. I think a lot of this does come back to, like, you know, the executives would love to not have to sell you hardware because hardware was sold at a loss a lot of the time, and it's not anymore. You know, everyone's just jacking up their prices, and you know, tariffs are a huge cause of that, but not the only one. AI data centers are buying up all the RAM in the world, so how are you going to go ship a console? You know? So, you know, Sony's got its own cloud tech. They don't have their own cloud backbone or whatever, and, you know, so you could argue that leaves them a little more vulnerable, and what do they offer if they're not the backbone provider of this cloud service? And I would argue that they are a content company when it comes to that stuff, but you know, it's easy to envision a scenario where more and more of these companies would love to get you, if maybe not you, right? Maybe not you individually, because you are already interested in buying a console or a PC. You are interested in running games locally. But again, you know, as I think I've been saying this in some form for years now, there are a lot of people out there that just don't give a fuck about this stuff the way that you and I do. And they have money too. Some, I don't know. It seems like the only people left buying consoles are, like, I don't know. Consumer spending is being done by a smaller and smaller percentage of the population these days as it gets more expensive. And so a lot of people are getting priced out in general, which is another great reason to say, hey, here's a way for you to not have to buy a console.
CJ, try another.
And here's a way for you to play it, a free-to-play game. That's why free-to-play games still do so well, is because there's people who like games in an abstract way that don't like them enough to go engage the way that you and I might. They're not going to go pre-order a PlayStation 5. They're not going to buy one at all anymore. There are a number of people still playing on PS4 that may never upgrade. When that PS4 stops getting new games, they may just go like, well, I don't know, I'm just playing games on my phone now, or I know this cloud thing is interesting, and this is that, and, you know, and exploring other options for them. I think that's a terrible experience, and I don't think that that experience has necessarily gotten better over these years that we've been, you know, hearing people bang this drum for the cloud. A lot of this stuff sucks. A lot of this stuff sucks to use. It does not play well. It does not play reliably a lot of the time. You know, at best, you come away from playing an action game via a cloud stream, and you go like, oh, that, you know, that worked better than I would expect. You still noticed it. It still was very noticeable that this was had a big delay, but like,
what the fuck do you think you're doing?
And so they're counting on
I could do with some help.
people who are willing to, you know, that are interested in not spending the amount of money that you might be willing to spend. And that they are also going to be less sensitive to that feeling because they're not going to know any better. There's millions of people out there that you could probably define that way. And game developers, if there is a rise of that, if we do start seeing this migration, like if there's a mainstream rise in use of like cloud gaming services, which I don't think is guaranteed, but I suppose it's possible. Eventually you might see game developers start to plan for that. And they go, okay, well, we're going to make games that are a little bit slower moving, that have a wider timing windows, and, you know, like, you know, we're going to put like what, Clair Obscure on a cloud service. If you were going to do that right, to account for people that might be playing on a phone in a taxi halfway around the world, then you're going to take out or really like you're going to err on the side of latency and take out the timing based parries. You're going to take out I need to hit A here to counter this just right. You know, all the discourse about parrying in games would come to a stop if developers were programming for cloud latency, because the button would be so easy to hit that it would either completely suck all the time, or they would just move away from that as a mechanic completely in favor of something that would be more reliable over a data connection, over a cloud stream. You know, and I look at that and I say that's the end of fighting games, that's the end of driving games, that's the end of a lot of different types of games that are reliant on being low latency if we're, you know, trying to make a game for the masses. So that, you know, I'm not going to say that keeps me up at night, but I look at that and go like, is that the potential outcome here? And so when you know, when Pactor is talking his shit, that's what he's talking about. He's saying Sony doesn't have an answer for that. And he is saying that he thinks that stuff like that is the future of gaming. And I can't sit here and say that I disagree. I don't think that that will be a good future for gaming, for the types of games that I generally like to play and what have you. But again, if you're trying to go where the people are, if you're trying to release your game, if you're trying to make money in the game business, and that is where the game business starts to go, if we do start to see this, like, and again, I think there's still a question as to like how many people actually want this, how many people have a phone connection or a good enough data plan to play these games on their phones, let alone their televisions in their home. You know, it's like Netflix can pause and buffer, right? You don't need to know if you, like, you might have a 40-second latency to the stream on Netflix end because of how big the buffer is or something, and it will buffer more if your connection sucks. It can adjust. Gaming, unless we're playing visual novels or something, gaming, the latency is always going to be tighter than that of a non-interactive video stream. And so it's going to require maybe not the highest end connection in the world, but higher than like you can't just look at like Netflix's internet requirements and go, well, everyone has that, they'll all be able to play games. It's a totally different set of problems that need to be solved, right? So I think there's a middle ground, and I think that we'll see more and more companies experiment with games that are being run locally that still have elements of them streamed in from the cloud, whether that's textures or audio, or like whatever, right? I think there's some kind of middle ground that we hit upon where you're like, oh, the terminal in the user's home was actually relatively dumb. Like we could put an Xbox 360 in these people's houses with a 4K scaler on it and then just pipeline the good-looking data to them as they need it and try to figure out a way to meet in the middle somewhere. And we'll surely see companies experiment with those types of things as well as this stuff rolls along. But I guess my point is, I don't think that Pachter is necessarily as far off as people are giving him shit for. I think that to say that right now today, when so many of the cloud services have been so lacking, and we've seen from, whether it's court documents and stuff about Microsoft's commitment to the cloud and what have you, that came out in some of the Activision stuff, even the players that have, world-leading cloud infrastructure aren't coming out of this going, yes, there's an audience here. They're saying, we're not sure if there's an audience here. And they aren't even trying to market to those people right now, really. The Xbox cloud service is being marketed to you and me as an option, as like, hey, you're already playing Xbox games. Here's another way you can play them. We're all about choice. That's how they're shipping this stuff, right? And so we haven't even gotten to a point, Stadia was something where, they never marketed that, and it, that thing shit the bed immediately because they were trying to ship games for people who like to play video games on a service that people who like to play video games feel doesn't feel right. It's a bad merger of the technology. It's a bad use for it. If you launched a cloud service and you had dramatically different video games that were aimed at a more casual audience and kids, and you're like, yeah, here's Red Dead, because we know you heard about Red Dead and might want to try it, and maybe you won't care enough that it is a little bit latent because it's primarily a single player game and what have you, and maybe you even make some adjustments to the game to further account for that. But you're not necessarily trying to Stadia had Destiny 2 on it. At the time, it was interesting and whatever, and you're like, oh, the cloud, and but when you look back on that now, tactically, the idea of trying to populate your cloud gaming service with fucking RPG shooters and stuff that here, play this game for 100 hours a week and do that, just play this game nonstop, and hardcore video games, if you will, is stupid. You know who should be the biggest company in the world? If not right now, then 5-10 years down the line, you know who should be ready to take advantage of this stuff and become fucking gazillionaires if and when the technology takes off? Jackbox. Jackbox should be making the biggest video games on the planet if and when a cloud infrastructure service ever got to a point where it was, reaching penetration and being advertised to the right people and all of that stuff. And they've tried some things along those lines. Jackbox should be the company that should be completely ready to make a fucking gazillion dollars. And they've experimented with is it the Comcast cable boxes? I know for a long time EA had people looking at Comcast devices, Comcast boxes, and going can we make Madden run on this in some capacity? Can we do this? Can we do that? Jackbox is heading down that road a little bit. Yeah, they have a subscription service. They've got things. I have to imagine the minute anyone gets back into the cloud gaming business, the cloud service or whatever in a major way, like anyone that tries to market it, anyone that tries to like, hey, we're putting this on all the TVs, we're doing this, we're doing that, like, that's Jackbox's bread and butter. That is their wheelhouse already, and it has been for a long time. The console is the least important part of that link. There's no reason why you should need to have a PC or a Switch or any of these things to play a Jackbox game. Days. You know? That doesn't even need to be a video stream streamed to you. That could just be CFAX. That could just be, you know, hey, we're streaming these screenshots of words to you, you know, and the audio's playing. You can do that on Satellaview. Jackbox for Satellaview is going to clean up, man. You're gonna plug it into the bottom of your Super Nintendo, and then you're gonna play trivia quizzes. It's gonna blow your goddamn mind. But like that's, you know, like that. I look at that and go like, that's maybe there's a bigger audience for all of this stuff if someone hits upon it and markets it the same way or the right way, and it, you know, if Apple decided to really get behind it the way they got behind Apple TV Plus and said, hey, our Apple Arcade stuff is fun or whatever, but like honestly, who gives a shit? We've got a better idea, and it's this more subscription-based. What I'm saying is 1v100. Let's talk about it. Hey, the guy, the Scott Rogowski is back and about to start hosting a live trivia game on phones. I don't think that thing is launched yet, but there's an app that you can download and get in line to wait for. So, you know,
Dancing through Corvana was so
we're all due, baby. It's all coming back, baby. We'll see. It's a mess. The future of video games. Like, I think the one thing there's a couple of things you can say. One, anyone who says that they've got it all figured out is fucking crazy. Anyone who says like, oh, this is going to happen, then this, then this. Anyone that is overly sure about how, even just like what Microsoft is going to do next or whatever. I think anyone who says like, here's how it's going to go, whether it's with the EA buyout or the Microsoft stuff or the, you know, cloud gaming and whatever else. I think anyone who says, here's how all of this is going to work is full of shit. Because I think there's so many potential outcomes here. And you know, the business reasons for getting into those things and exploring those things, and, you know, that'll all change time and time again. You know, right now Microsoft is probably having to pump a bunch of AI bullshit into whatever the future of Xbox is, because that's where it's corporately aligned. If and when that bubble pops, maybe that will free them up to not have to fuck around with this garbage for as much as they are, and, you know, they'll do something different, or, you know, maybe who knows what the next fad will be, right? We'll have to address some other stupid fucking thing, but
learn how to tackle.
I guess like that's the thing. Is like I think there's a lot of interesting technology swirling around. It might not be interesting from the perspective of I want to play a high-end racing game, or man, I can't wait until Street Fighter 7 comes out. Like it's not something that is necessarily. I think a lot of this technology is stuff that like I don't immediately see a way that it benefits games the way we see them now. You know, but there's a lot of fucking weird technology swirling around that if any of this stuff catches and finds an audience, then, you know, all of it, any of it has the potential to be the future of video games, right? The same way that like when phones came along, suddenly that was the future of video games until it wasn't. And I guess the analogy there is like, I don't necessarily think that the console gaming, or at least the style of hey, I'm getting a thing that I'm going to use to play video games on, and I'm going to hook it up to my TV or some screen of some kind. I don't necessarily think that we're in the last days of that, but I think that as we see the Xbox business change and all this other stuff, and you know, just the, you know, human, you know, like the people's needs and desires for different types of devices, like I do think that like that, the nature of that, and potentially your relationship to that box under your TV will change.
Thank you.
In some way. It's very vague, I know. But at the end of the day, I do think that like there are probably enough people to make that stuff like make sense for a good long time. So this is not a situation where it's like, oh, console games are over. Because even if PC becomes the thing that you put under your television, people will still make console-style video games. Like a lot of the games we play on PC today are now console-style video games. Unless you're playing a fucking 4X game or, you know, weird porno. No, I don't know. So, you know, I think that there is a huge appetite for that sort of stuff. You know, we see, you know, Fortnite is a video game-ass video game. At the end of the day, it is a fucking game where you run up to people and you pull a trigger and shoot them in the fucking face. It doesn't get more video game than that. So, like, when we look at the popular video games that are in that form, whether it's, you know, the mining and the crafting of a Minecraft, games have come a long way since the left trigger, right trigger of Alien Resurrection. And so I think that, you know, there continues to be an audience for this sort of stuff. And so I don't think it's a either or. I don't think it's oh, these cloud services rise up and immediately all these other games are just gone. It's more like, oh, here's another potentially more lucrative revenue stream for game developers over here in this creepy mainstream cloud thing. The same way that a lot of people felt phone games was going to be. But who knows, man? Maybe you get 10 years into the cloud thing and it seems like the biggest thing in the world, and then one day the fad is over and people are like, oh, all these games are free to play and they're garbage and I'm watching too many ads and all this other stuff sucks and I'm done with it. Then what? People come crawling back to making fucking consoles. You're like, well, I guess we need to put this driving game on whatever this PlayStation is now. The new TurboGrafx is coming out. Yeah, NEC got back in the business after Microsoft fucked it all up. There was room for a third device, and turns out Super Graphics 6 is fucking sick, man. You can play fucking Ghouls and Ghosts on it still. It's backwards compatible to Hue cards. It's fucking nuts, man. That's the future that's the future I want to actively work to build. What can we do to get, you know, Heath Courage in Alpha Zone 2? Let's take one more break. We'll come back with the rest of the news. You know, hair loss is about hair loss, but it's not just about hair. It's about how you feel. You know, when you look in the mirror, when you're out there in social situations, if you find yourself going like, should I wear a hat or, I don't know, keep my hood up? And, you know, if you're becoming one of those people that just randomly puts a hand on top of your head, like, what is that about? What? Turn to Hims. Hims helps you take back that confidence with access to simple, personalized care that fits your life. Hims offers convenient access to a range of prescription hair loss treatments with ingredients that work, including chews, oral medication, serums, and sprays. They've got doctor-trusted, clinically proven ingredients like finasteride and minoxidil that can help stop further hair loss and regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hims will bring that expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. There's no hidden fees, no surprise costs, just real personalized care on your schedule. Yeah, think of Hims as like it's the digital front door to getting back to your old self with simple 100% online access to trusted treatments for real health concerns all in one place. For simple online access to personalized and affordable care for hair loss, ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/Jeff. That's hims.com/Jeff for your free online visit. hims.com/Jeff. Individual results may vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Featured products include compounded drug products which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information. Speaking of shit shows, Marathon. is getting ready for another closed technical test. This comes months after the game getting delayed and them finding plagiarized art in the game and having to go and audit every single piece of art in that thing, I guess. They've got another closed test coming up October 22nd.
Kitchen's a mess.
According to your friends at videogameschronicle.com. This is going to be an NDA playtest. This is not something you're going to see streams of, presumably. But it will have some new maps, some new characters, prox chat.
Learn how to fly.
A solo queue, more storytelling, and retuned combat pacing, according to this. This is not something that they are, this is not them committing to a release date or anything like that. They just say that they will have something in the coming months to talk about, what's next for Marathon.
Figure out the rudder.
And so this is something that is actually, it sounds like this is going to be one of those closed NDA tests, but it is coming up. They're taking signups. I guess you can go to marathonthegame.com if you want to get an NDA, if you want to at least sign up for the potential to get an NDA'd look at Bungie's extraction shooter? Who knows?
Look,
maybe they've retooled it to be something completely different by now. Probably not. But they are taking signups. The signups are full of like, it's one of those like when you sign up, you sign up for like a beta and they're like, have you heard of these games before? How much have you played these games? Do you play a lot of these games? And you look at the list of games and you're like, okay, can I parse out what you're doing and what you're making and what's going on? But kind of the typical contestants, I suppose, showing up in that. Speaking of PlayStation things getting canceled, the PlayStation The Concert, which was a concert that they were taking on tour. They have canceled the rest of the 24-25 dates for this show. Oh, they did? Okay, they got Video Games Chronicle got a quote out of the organizers of the event known as GEA Live. It is with great regret that we have canceled the PlayStation The Concert's 2025 tour dates in North America. Our team has spent a considerable amount of time developing this project, and we share in the disappointment of fans who will no longer be able to attend. We extend our heartfelt thanks to everyone who supported the show and appreciate your understanding in making this difficult decision. No reason given at all in this. But that was, they were playing music from like God of War and Ghost of Tsushima at this thing, and they were taking it on the road and playing music from like, I guess, like modern PlayStation games. When I think about iconic music from PlayStation, it is nothing that they have made in the last decade or two of cinematic scores. That's not to say that they are making bad music in these games. It's that, when I think about the music of PlayStation, it's not like, oh, this is the song they played when Kratos was mad at his son and his son was mad at Kratos, and this when Aloy crested the thing and the sun was shining, this was the music that played. Like, I would not recognize a single tune out of that.
And you
played out
hit
of
the wrong
context.
button, your brain freezes. Down,
you told
down,
me you
down,
were getting
down.
the fucking...
Oh my God, I survived.
If you told me you were getting milk can together...
I'm getting off here. I'll help clean up the kitchen.
Then I would be like, okay. If you told me you were like, well, we're just getting a DJ to play the soundtrack to Wipeout XL in a dark room, I'd be like, okay, all right, I'm listening. And then also we're going to play some music from Metal Gear, I guess, because that's, not first party, but it's, PlayStation in its own way. I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure. Memorable tunes. VGC notes that a lot of the European dates were canceled in like Poland, Sweden, Norway, and Italy, and some others got pushed back until the next summer. But yeah, Ticketmaster kind of just quietly canceled and sent out cancellation notices to people that had bought tickets for like New York, DC, Huntsville, Chicago, Boston, Philly, Grand Rapids. And I guess the Red Bank, New Jersey show is still on sale, I guess. Well, wait. No, but when they wrote the article, the Red Bank, New Jersey date was still on sale, but maybe that has been canceled. VGC does note that when they looked at the seating chart for the Red Bank show, there were a lot of tickets still available, unsurprisingly. But they do have sale dates for 2026, so they are still going to try to do this next year for San Francisco, LA, Toronto. And so on. So it doesn't seem like that the show itself is dead. But that seems like a pretty niche, like, I don't know, man. How many cities are you going to take a PlayStation concert tour, to when you're playing, like, I don't know, the music of The Last of Us? Is that a thing? I can't talk about this without sounding like an absolute asshole. Because people worked fucking damn hard on the soundtrack to these games, and they did that thing, man. But I personally, the idea of going and sitting in a crowd and hearing music from Horizon be played, like, fucking, who's doing that? Who the fuck is doing that, man? Who's like, yeah, man, no, they're gonna play some Last of Us, some Ghost of Tsushima, some God of War. I'm gonna go see it. Like, what? Who is doing that? I like the idea in a sense of like, hey man, fucking orchestras, man, go see orchestras play their shit. It's cool. Because it is cool. But like the selling point of like, here's a video game music thing. I mean, even Tommy Tallarico knew that occasionally you had to play the fucking hits.
Your own name.
And those shows fucking were not awesome either. So yeah, this whole thing just seems like a really insane concept that just like I was like, who is going to see this? And so like and it's not surprising to hear that maybe some of these cities maybe weren't moving a lot of tickets.
So don't ask me.
Especially in this day and age when like the concert business is fucking suffering in so many different ways for, big popular acts and all of these other, like known artists going on tour and everything. The idea that a show playing orchestral video game music didn't sell out. Like, yeah, no shit. No one's going to these shows anymore. But we'll see if they pull it back together for 2026, I guess.
Cool. Excited.
Yeah, that's I feel like if you're going to do this, like piggyback onto some other gaming event that's already happening, right? Like that's if it's like, hey, PAX is in town. And also as part of this, you can buy a separate ticket to go see the PlayStation concert. Like, yeah, okay. Maybe I'm in town for a gaming weekend anyway. And here's one more gaming thing I'm going to do. But also I don't know. I think that there's just like more fun music to pull from, but that's just that's going to be a matter of taste or whatever. Like I would not want to sit in an audience and hear people play music from Horizon. And again, that's not me saying the music of Horizon is bad. It's just that like I can hear that in the game, and in the context of the game, it's very well done. I would not. That's not a soundtrack I would ever go like, I'm going to look this up on Apple Music here and let's listen to the Horizon soundtrack while I'm getting things. That's just, that ain't me, man. And I don't think there's a ton of people that are in that boat of like needing to, it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just a wild choice to do in the first place. So, and I think if you were doing a video game music concert, you would not do it just based on PlayStation. You would do it based on a much wider. You would want to be able to pull from a much wider array of work to play.
That's why I'm in butt Egypt. Okay.
You'd be like, okay, we're gonna play some songs from Pyre, and then the guy that did the voice of Parappa is gonna come out, and we're all going to have a good time and forget about the time when he ripped all those people off or whatever it was he did.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jeff is hip like
Starbreeze, publishers of the Payday series. They have decided they were also working on a
now I
Dungeons and
remember.
Dragons
Yeah,
game.
it was hip
announced,
for their little.
gosh,
Yeah, I never played it, but I remember hearing
It
was like
2023 here, according to your friends at
it
Video
was
Games
supposed to be
Chronicle.com.
good. I mean, I'd
Your home
heard.
for
I
video
remember.
game news.
Yeah.
It was codenamed Project Baxter.
That was
They were
a
going
music
to
game
shut it
that was
down. It was
good.
originally scheduled to ship next year. And they are going to be laying off 44 people who were attached to that team. It's a mix of employees and contractors. Some of them will end up on the Payday team from the sounds of things, but man, Payday 3 never got back. Like they never fixed Payday 3 to a degree that anyone noticed. I mean, maybe the game's great now and no one would ever know, but man, what a crazy. If you remember, they launched Payday 3 and people did not like it for a variety of reasons. Some of them technical, some of them just the way that game was designed. And so it was not long after the launch of Payday 3 that a lot of players just went back and kept playing Payday 2. And so they spent a lot of time trying to fix Payday 3 and trying to get that, whether it's, getting the trust back from their audience or whatever. But I don't think they ever turned the corner on Payday 3 to the point where people were excited about it. So even if that game is better now, and I imagine it has to be at least slightly better than it was at launch, that has not resulted in it, taking off or being more beloved than Payday 2 ever was or whatever. But it's an absolute mess. An absolute mess.
Sure.
And maybe this is completely unrelated to the, Following a strategic review, the board of directors and management have concluded that resources are best deployed to accelerate the growth of Starbreeze's flagship Payday franchise, is what they said about the cancellation of Project Baxter. So they are going all in on Payday 4. You know what? In some sick way, they almost need to do a Winamp thing here. They almost need to pull a Winamp and go, okay, we're putting out Payday 5 because Payday 2 plus Payday 3 is Payday 5, and we're gonna take all the microtransactions and all the things you bought in Payday 2. We're going to roll that together with all of the things that we put in Winamp 3, which, if you don't remember, when they put out Winamp 3, everyone fucking hated it. And so they eventually tried to put out, that was their justification. They're like, it's Winamp 5. It's 2 plus 3 is 5. And it's all the stuff you loved from 2 coming back to 3, the 3 code base. And thus, no one cared because Winamp was already done. It's the problem with making a sequel to your game. When your game is a popular game that has had, thousands of dollars in microtransactions? To take Payday 2 and go, yeah, that was cool, but fuck all that shit you bought, even if you bought it last week, because now Payday 3 is out. Like, I think that's already like a really fucking bogus value proposition. Regardless of the quality of Payday 3, right? That's already a pretty stiff hill to climb. It's sort of like the Apex Legends thing of, we're not going to make a sequel to that. We're going to keep working on the thing. And oh wait, the player numbers are what now? Maybe we'll make a sequel to that. And a lot of people have split. Like Starbreeze is not the Starbreeze it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever, right? It's there's been a handful of people that have spun off to do other studios. Yeah, was it Den of Wolf? That's That's the name of that game, right? Den of Wolves. Yeah, 10 Chambers. 10 Chambers, the studio behind Den of Wolves, the studio that was also behind GTFO, which was a neat game that was way too rough for normal people. So maybe Den of Wolves will be slightly less heinous. Heinous is not the word. GTFO is a really neat game that I don't want to play ever again. I hope Den of Wolves is a really neat game that I enjoy playing. Yes, as Fat Scout puts it in the chat, the whole Grin, Overkill, Starbreeze saga is, yes, 10 Chambers and what happened? What happened? Those guys split up, and I don't even know if they're talking anymore. If we live in a world where Bo and Ulf can't sit down with each other, what hope do the rest of us have?
No hope.
Anyway. Nintendo put a weird video out. I don't know. I think this is on their app, but it is also on their YouTube channel. It is just called Close to You. It is a short video of a baby taking its first steps. It's an animated short of a baby's room coming to life as the baby takes its first steps, and the mommy coming back and seeing that and being like, oh. The only description on it is just close to you. It is not necessarily from a game. People are trying to parse out and go like, oh, what's this in the background? Is there a Pikmin here? Is there this here? Is there this kind of sounds a little bit like Pikmin music. This could be Pikmin. Is this a Pikmin? Is this a Pikmin? Or people are saying, this is Rosalina. This baby is Rosalina. It's a young Rosalina. Because remember, her mother has gone to this, that. You know, and people are so people are breaking out their lore Bibles for all the different Nintendo franchises and trying to layer this video onto it. And perhaps it is from one of those, or perhaps it is just a thing. I couldn't tell you. Maybe it's a brand new game that they're making and they just wanted to debut it in this way without explaining any of it, but they are explaining none of it. So go watch that if you want to see 3 minutes of animation. It's, it's better than Coco Melon. The baby looks better than the Coco Melon babies. I will say that. That is without a doubt. Looks way better than Coco Melon. It's a nice little video. It's fun. But
I am panicking.
Don't let yourself get wrapped up in this. Don't try to assign a bunch of meaning to it because, this is Ivy Snow in the chat says, I like the theory that Miyamoto has just become Illusion Studios pilled. Yeah, there was a part of me watching it where I was just like, did just someone at Nintendo decide that they wanted to try their hand at animation? Does someone watch this and go like, oh, we just want to try to make an animated thing because we have an animation studio now? And maybe we can make this and just this is a short and we'll just put it out there and who cares and it doesn't have to be a thing and it's just something we made as we try to get better at making stuff and maybe we'll make a longer form thing later. Right? Or maybe it's them backdoor announcing a new Pikmin game or more information about the upcoming Pikmin game or whatever. I don't have the patience for I don't have the patience for teases like this anymore. You know what I mean? Like there was a time in my life where, you presented me with an I love bees. If you present me with an ARG, I'd be like, oh, this is maybe interesting. And now I'm just like, dude, I don't have time to work for your marketing campaign. Tell me the thing you're making and when you're making it and when you're gonna sell it and all this other stuff. There are so many games coming out every single day. The idea that people are going to get hung up on this and go like, what is this going to be? Like, dude, I don't know. They'll tell you at some point if it's going to be anything. They'll let you know. They'll let you know when pre-orders start. You don't need to work for their marketing team. You don't need to play their ARG and activate a community for them on that stuff. But, that's ARGs can be neat. I think ARGs are actually really neat. I just don't have I'll tell you, I have zero patience for major corporations doing it at this point. If we were to suddenly find ourselves staring down the barrel of, like, another Glitter Mitten Grove situation, and if there was another ARG, if there, Lonely Girl 15 were to come back, then maybe I would be into Macho Man Randy Savage, big Lonely Girl 15 fan. I was trying to figure out where the girl was actually from.
Talk to that baby, Joseph.
The fuck am I talking about? I don't know. Anyway. That's it for the news. It's, I don't know, man. We're here in October, and, some of these bigger games are coming out, and I'm kind of in the middle of playing a lot of different stuff and starting to catch up a little bit on some of the games, some of the more prominent games that came out over the course of the year as we kind of get closer and closer to awards season. Awards season, yeah. Fuck. I can't shake loose of this now.
No.
But, we're here. It's Q4. It is the fourth quarter of the year. When we talk about games coming out, we are now in it for the next month and a half here as we kind of get up to, Black Friday or whatever. It doesn't, I don't know, like there's a lot of stuff coming out. There's a bunch of big games coming out. And I don't know. I have to, like, right now I'm just kind of like, I'm very Battlefield focused right now, and I'll, have more to say about that once that's out and everything. But yeah, there's the holiday release season is upon us, the fourth quarter of the year. Not fiscal Q4, real Q4. Why don't we get into some emails? Podcast@guard.bike is the email address to send emails to. The only one to send them to, yeah.
There, now we got a baby.
Now we'll take a look at him. Let's see here. Jedi Mass 4 asks, what is a console generation anymore? Yeah, sure. At TGS, Sony declared that financially the PS5 generation has been PlayStation's most successful generation. Looking at their finance reports, a factor to why the revenue has been so high is a decent portion of the PlayStation business is still being generated by people playing on the PS4. This is something that hasn't really occurred to this extent in previous generations, and I suspect when the PS6 launches, the PS5 will continue to generate a lot of business well into the PS6's lifespan. When the PS4 is still getting notable releases in 2025 and significant support more than 5 years into the PlayStation 5, do the bright lines of console generations even mean much anymore if games are coming out across multiple generations for years to come? Yeah, it's, yeah, I mean, that's, this has been a generation unlike any other as far as that stuff goes, because of that, because of how many games are still coming out on older devices. Normally it would be like, you'd see in the first year, it'd be like, oh, I don't know, this Tony Hawk came out across multiple generations, and there's, or like Gun comes out on the original Xbox and the Xbox 360, and and everything with that. FIFA was always the game that would come out forever. You would like wake up one day and see like, wait, FIFA, what? They're still putting FIFA out? And you'd realize like, oh, it's the exact same game. They're just putting new rosters in it and putting it out again. And it was the FIFA, it's the Legacy Edition. Eventually they started referring to it as like Legacy Edition or whatever on top of that to let you know this ain't a new FIFA. And then Just Dance started having a longer than expected lifespan across, and now here we are. I don't know, man. Anthrax Bees said it best. People will definitely still be on PlayStation 4 when the PlayStation 6 comes out. You're right. Yep. Yeah. I mean, for how long? Like, not, who knows? But the new games coming out across 3 generations, that's unlikely to happen for a long period of time. But yeah, there will probably be. I mean, there will still be plenty of people playing on PS4. Will there be new games to buy on PS4 when the PS6 comes out? That's like the number of releases on PS4 is slowing down, especially if we're talking about like larger full price releases like that. That is certainly a much, much, much slower trickle. But yeah, it is, the factors are many. I think we've talked about a lot of those factors here today, just talking about some of that other stuff. But, the PlayStation 5 is expensive. It was hard to find for a long time. And I think by the time it was in stores everywhere, I think some of the interest had cooled ever so slightly. And so players were just like, fuck it, I'm going to keep playing PS4 games. Or they're like, hey, I'm not that into games to begin with to go spend this kind of money on a new one. So, but I like games enough that I'm going to keep playing them here. And there were subscription services attached to those consoles with PlayStation Plus. And so, there are reasons to stay subscribed to a thing, and that's going to generate more revenue on top of that. And, so there's just a lot of weird circumstances that led to this. And I think it's something that is really largely just happening with PlayStation. I think it will also happen with the Switch for a good long time because of the way Nintendo is handling business.
Take your time and let me.
You don't hear about it so much with the Xbox, but I think that's because Xbox has done a better job of presenting their games as a seamless, the Xbox Play Anywhere, the Xbox, the Xbox, whatever. It's going to automatically download the right version for your console. And, this is stuff that they've been doing even for their half step when the Xbox Series, when the Xbox One X was coming out. Yes, smart delivery. That's what they call it, smart delivery. If you were downloading a game on a One X as opposed to a regular Xbox One, it would get you different textures, like you would download a slightly different version of the game. And they just kind of kept that going. And so for them, they've been better about doing this kind of rolling generation thing to where people don't notice as much. But also the Xbox One was so clowned upon that no one is noticing if a game is shipping on Xbox One or not because no one's talking about it. People still talk about PlayStation 4. You know what I mean? I think the smart delivery stuff is really great. I think that's one of the really, 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 really smart things they did from a platform perspective at delivering games and delivering, on backwards compatibility and having these relatively seamless upgrades to like, because some of those didn't happen on day one. It was like you were downloading the Xbox One version of a game, and then 2 months later they'd be like, oh shit, we decided to upgrade this game. And so you would just download the upgrade in place and it would just kind of seamlessly happen. And you would have the Xbox Series X version of a game. And I thought that was pretty cool. On PlayStation, it's a little bit clunkier, especially if you're going like the PS5 to PS5 Pro updates happen seamlessly. That's just a patch. But PS4 to PS5 is like they managed their platform in a much more rigid way with that shit, and they don't do it. The upside of that, if you had to find one, is that you can still download the PlayStation 4 version of a PS5 game if you really want to, which is, if you're if you're some kind of trophy sicko, There are sometimes reasons why you might want to play both versions of a game, but yeah. The generation thing is, these lines have been being blurred in different ways for a while now, right? Because of the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro and some, there was still a pretty defined line, though, between PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 in terms of just like, these games don't run here. And we will still see that line where it's like, hey, there will still be a PlayStation 6 version of a game. I would think. It's entirely possible, though, that they lean into this in a way that is maybe similar to how Xbox has done it. But, okay, if we imagine the PlayStation 6 products, the products they will release in that generation, if we stick to the rumored talk about there will be a console and there will be a handheld, and the handheld is not as powerful as a PS5, that's a weird range of power to be dealing with. Do you end up in a situation where you just keep shipping games and you eventually get to a point where you have games that only run on the high-end console and don't run on anything else? Or are you going to do the thing that Microsoft did that developers seem to not like, especially this deep into the generation? Are you going to make them optimize their games to run on both the console and the handheld? Because if you're doing that, then they might as well optimize for PS5 as well, right? So would you end up in a situation where all of these games are coming out across the board on all machines? Or are you going to say, oh, the PS6 is just the handheld and the console? Are you going to mandate that the games need to run on both? Or are you going to allow for scenarios where, like, hey, this game only runs on the PlayStation 6, it does not run on the handheld?
Move your body.
It's a weird It's a weird series of problems to have to navigate if that is indeed the strategy to launch a handheld that is, in the same range as a PS5 but maybe not quite as powerful. It would be weird to just eliminate the PS5 from existence in that case. You might as well just keep selling them.
Where you at?
But how expensive is the PlayStation 6 going to be if you're going to keep selling PS5s in a world where the price on them only keeps going up? Anyway, I think that, we've gone through a zillion different thought exercises around the end of generations and what that might look like, and the idea of annual console hardware the same way a phone works, or whatever, right? Annual is not the right cadence, but, would you do every 2 years? Every 2 years there's an upgraded console out? And you just say, hey, these games, the game we're shipping right now in 2030 runs on the last 7 years of devices, and there's a cutoff, and if you're behind that cutoff, it doesn't run that, it's confusing from a labeling perspective. The fuck do you call these things? And how do you convey that to consumers? But like, Apple has been doing that with apps for a long time. I think the difference is that apps are a lot lower stakes. It's like, oh, I paid $4 for this period tracker, and it doesn't work anymore on the new iPhones. Or rather, I haven't upgraded my phone for a while, and I can't update my period tracker because it's built for iOS 26 now. I don't know. Weird shit like that. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where this goes in light of everything else that's happening, right? Because, look at the PC. You can always look to the PC and try to parse out, like, oh, would it be more like that? Would that make sense if it was more like that? The range of hardware that most modern PC games support, and by support I mean from like minimum to recommended, like that range is usually pretty wide. It's still pretty wide. We're getting to the point where that bottom end has been coming up now for a while. The low end recommended specs have started to move up when it didn't feel like they were moving at all for a long time. And now we're starting to see it. It's a lot of like, oh, well, this engine just needs to be multi-threaded. Like it just runs better, so you're going to need this to do that. And, scenarios like that, that I think make a lot of sense. If Microsoft just starts shipping PCs one day, PCs that go under your television, why wouldn't they just end up on that range somewhere instead? And they could do a simplified version of it if they wanted to and attach funny little numbers and whatever, if that was something that was easier for consumers to swallow. But would Sony follow suit? What does Sony do in all of this? Keep in mind that Sony is facing different markets and thinking about different markets than Microsoft tends to, because Sony thinks a lot about Japan. And they think about what the Japanese market wants and what the Japanese market would respond to. And so when we talk about a Sony handheld, that's why I say like, oh, a Sony handheld is probably not, for as much as we're talking about all these open PC Windows handhelds and all this other stuff, I don't think Sony's going to make one of those. I think Sony will make a closed ecosystem PlayStation handheld that runs the same games that the console runs instead of having a separate software library the way they used to, because then you get the benefit of the better software development across all devices. Like the Switch. They're looking to the Switch and going like, oh, we'll do a kind of a riff on that. It won't be necessarily, it'll probably be dockable. But if you want the best experience on television, you should buy the console and not the handheld, right? But it's something that they're looking at as like, oh, well, the Japanese market is responding to this and this is helping with this. And, they're looking at it that way. And approaching, I think, the entire video game market in a different way.
Yep.
Where it's like, oh, this is like a Switch, but
you tell him.
More sad fathers. I don't, whatever. So I don't know. What does that mean? Who knows, man? I think the interesting thing out of all of this stuff is, with all the handheld rumors, I've said this a couple of times, but I think the crazy thing here isn't necessarily going to be what does Sony do. If they stick to this, if this ends up being the plan, this was the plan that, supposedly leaked out a while ago. And, the guy that put this plan out there had all the PS5 Pro specs pretty dead on before they were announced. And so, he seems like a somewhat reliable source for some sort of information around this stuff. So if we assume that to be true, and I think it's a sensible strategy, so I look at it and go like, none of this seems like completely out of whack. Like I could see them doing this. I think the what does Nintendo do? And they just launched the system so that they don't have to make a move for a long time, right? They'll get to watch this whole space evolve before their eyes again, right? Like they get to see this, they've already seen this kind of handheld PC thing go from 0 to, not 100, but 0 to 10, whatever it is now. They're starting to see more interest in the type of device that they have been making for a while now. And so if Sony's going to chase after that as well, again, if you're Nintendo, would you make a Switch 3? Because you're right back to the apples to apples comparison of this device and this device have the same form factor, but this one is way more powerful than Nintendo's. Nintendo does best when it's like, the Switch, there was nothing else like it on the market. You're like, oh, it's a handheld device with a lot of the swagger of a console, and they're having it both ways. But if everyone is making one of those, what would Nintendo make instead? That's right. Bonfire Like has figured it out. It's Virtual Boy 2. Hear me out. They're going to Trojan horse the Virtual Boy back to you by selling you a $100 plastic shell, getting you amped to play Nestor's Funky Bowling and Jack Brothers. I was playing some Jack Brothers the other day. It's not a good game, but it, as Virtual Boy games go, it was pretty good. Probably the best, in fact.
Yo, you dropped a bomb on me.
And then they hit you with Virtual Boy 2. They're like, well, we heard you like VR, but you think it sucks, so we made it good. Third parties will be seeing red, but they'll be in the black this holiday season with sales of games on Virtual Boy 2. No, I don't know, but like if you're Nintendo, you probably need to like zig. It's time, everyone else is zagging towards you, so you probably need to move zig and fucking go bananas all over again and figure out, another insane thing. It's easy to, forget that when the Wii was announced, when they first showed the controller for the Wii.
Oh, will you throw in the sink for me, please?
Nintendo seemed like fucking maniacs that had completely lost it. You're like, oh, these people are done. What the fuck are they doing? Like, what is this horse shit? I'm looking at that controller and seeing like, oh, well, you could turn it sideways and it does have a D-pad on it. And I'm like, yeah, but you can't play fucking Street Fighter on this thing. It's got 2 fucking buttons. What are we going to play, Urban Champion? Don't get me wrong, I love Urban Champion, but holy shit. Turns out they had some different ideas to make different types of video games. And they made a device that does not play Street Fighter very well without bolting another controller onto it. But they somehow did fine anyway. They somehow sold a few of those, a few Wiis, even though they did not have a good fighting game controller out of the box. So I would look to Nintendo to do something fucking real bonkers, unless market forces suppress that and they end up having to go a safe route because the video game market has gotten even weirder. But I feel like if you're Nintendo, you probably got to get out there on a limb all over again because everyone else has watched them do their thing and been like, dude, yeah, we should, huh? And technology is caught up in a way that lets those games run relatively well in a handheld form factor and all of that other stuff. So, so I think that's the kind of the interesting thing is what weird thing do they come up with 8 or 9 years down the line? Probably not 8 or 9, but like some number of years down the line.
Okay.
Garrett from Brooklyn has found the most mysterious consumer on the planet. And I told you these people must exist.
Whoa.
If there's one of them, there's got to be at least 100. Garrett writes and says, saw a guy at a coffee shop with a PlayStation Portal. Asked him how lag was since he was away from home. He told me he doesn't own a PlayStation 5. He just cloud streams. That's it. Did you know these people exist? That's it. I'm just in disbelief. It's a real sicko right there. It's a real sick fuck right there. You couldn't do that at launch, right? That was something that they patched in to the Portal after the fact, right? Because I thought you could only do the remote play stuff. So, but now they let you access the cloud from a PlayStation Portal. I'm telling you. It goes back to the guy I had when I had a hand the first time that the walls in this room needed to be replaced because they got too wet. The guy had to do the work. He told me all about how he played video games for years and years, and he had a laptop, and the laptop was getting older and older, and he was trying to play like I don't know. He wanted to play Red Dead.
Get some chocolate chips.
And he couldn't.
Hold on 1 second.
And I said, well, there's
Let's say Grace.
Yeah.
There's all these cloud services, you could, if you want to play newer games, there's GeForce Now, there's this, there's that, and he started down that road. He tried out, I think he became a GeForce Now subscriber after that and was like, this is great.
Whoa, too much.
Because my laptop sucks now. It can't play anything. But now I'm playing this new game and this new game, and it was a way for him to play stuff that he, was getting priced out of or just like technologied out of, right? Like these people exist. If there eventually is enough of them, you will you will see some kind of shift. I would assume.
All right, chocolate chip.
Corey in Rochester, New York writes in. Says, I love when you dig into old arcade stuff, especially when Mr. Do comes up. That got me thinking about a game I used to play at my job a long time ago. My boss back then loved collecting cabinets, and one we unexpectedly ended up playing a ton was Pengo. The ice block sliding, squishing snow bees, it had a surprising amount of depth. We'd have high score tournaments, and it was surprisingly competitive, strangely more so than Street Fighter 2. It feels like it got lost in the shuffle of early to mid-'80s arcade games, just like perhaps Donkey Kong 3, another one of my favorites. What are some of your other overlooked arcade gems that deserve a second look or you feel don't get their due? Pengo, like there is a modern Pengo, a relatively modern Pengo, I guess at this point, but
What time they do?
We have some cranberry juice.
But there is a you can get Pengo on the Switch. You can get Arcade Love plus Pengo for the Switch. I think that originally there was an Xbox 360 release, and it's a widescreen multiplayer Pengo game. So it's competitive Pengo, which is fucking bonkers. And I only played it once, and it was not great, but I didn't have enough people who knew what Pengo was to truly enjoy it. So I would be fascinated to know. And you'd have to import it. I don't think any of this stuff came out in the US. But I would be very curious to know if your fiercely competitive high score Pengo scene would ever get into the 8-player Pengo game. Pengo is a game that Sega published. I think Corland developed it because Corland was developing a lot of Sega stuff at the time. Pengo is a game about sliding blocks around a screen, and there are enemies that you can crush with the blocks, but also there are diamond blocks, and you want to try to get the 3 diamond blocks together. And if you do that, I think it makes all the enemies fall over, but you still have to just kill all the enemies to move on to the next level. But Pengo is a great game. Pengo's a great game. Pengo is a classic. Donkey Kong 3 is another good favorite. I was watching, I told my son that there was a Donkey Kong cartoon, and I found myself looking on the internet for an episode of the Saturday Supercade Donkey Kong cartoon, which I believe is what this was, because I think was there a standalone? Anyway, we stumbled across an episode of the show where Donkey Kong goes to a greenhouse.
Don't touch your hair. Yeah.
And there's a crazy Venus flytrap giant eating plant there that a guy is trying to steal because the plant eats metal and he wants to use it to rob banks or something, and he steals it. And then you realize that, like, I didn't realize at the time, but like as I'm watching it, like, oh shit, there's a the sign out in front of the greenhouse. This is Stanley's greenhouse. It is Stanley, and Stanley and Mario are working together to try to get this plant back. And Donkey Kong has been hoodwinked into helping this criminal because Donkey Kong is just a simple ape. And so they're chasing after Donkey Kong and this criminal and this plant, try to get the plant back. And it is Stanley the Bugman and Mario working in tandem. And I was like, man, that is a non-canonical moment if I've ever seen one. Holy smokes. So go give that a look. Go give that a look. Go find the episode of it's called the episode is called Greenhouse something. Other overlooked arcade gems that deserve a second look. I mean, I like a lot of the early Namco stuff. Rally X, Bosconian is a really fucking cool game. Assault is a really interesting kind of later era game. I'm a big fan of Xevious. I think a lot of those games have gotten re-released over and over again. So, some of those games are not necessarily obscure, but But in terms of overlooked arcade gems, I think Crazy Climber is really interesting, and it's something that I've been thinking about. I forget why it came up. There was some game I was comparing it to, which was fucking ridiculous, but Crazy Climber was a dual joystick game where you had to jerk the sticks back and forth. They controlled your hands, and so you'd have to like go back and forth to climb this building and move sideways out of the way of obstacles, and it was always very hard. As a kid, I couldn't play it. As a kid, I didn't understand how to make the man move. Like I just couldn't figure out how to get anywhere in it. And now as a grown-up, I can finally truly appreciate Crazy Climber. Elevator Action, I think, has always been a fantastic game. But Elevator Action Returns, Elevator Action 2, Elevator Action 2 Returns, if you must, is fucking awesome. It's such a cool game. It came way later than the original Elevator Action, but it has such a fucking rad style, and the music's good, and it's so good. But I really like original Elevator Action. There's a good like Game Boy version of Elevator Action as well.
Oh, nasty. Good.
What else, man?
I'm lying in my bed.
Good.
Space Fury is a vector game
no time for all that.
that I think is like the game itself is kind of whatever.
Ooh, I got sausage.
You are in the middle of a screen, and it's like there are enemy ships, and you're shooting them, and you're thrusting around, and you're docking with different upgrades and getting better shots or whatever. The thing about Space Fury is that when you're not playing it or between levels, there's a vector drawing of a big one-eyed alien that fucking talks to you. And when I was a kid, it scared the fucking shit out of me. A scary motherfucker.
Got food in your mouth. Wait 1 minute. I can't understand what you're saying.
TAC-SCAN is another kind of interesting idea for a vector graphics game where you have like 10 ships at the bottom of the screen, and they get shot and blown up, but you can replace them. And so it's like the action never really stops. You just eventually run out of ships. There's a button you hit to replenish your ships at the bottom of the screen. And so you have some in reserve, and you just go pop, 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 and fill the empty holes up as your ships get blown up. It's a weird idea. I like Reactor a lot. I think the 2600 version of Reactor is probably my favorite, but the arcade version was a big trackball game.
That was you.
And that's a weird, like you're inside a nuclear reactor. It's one of those, it's a very abstract thing. You're a little block inside of a nuclear reactor, and there are these other atoms bumping around inside the reactor, and you got to bump them into the walls to kill them, but they're trying to do the same to you, and all the while the reactor is growing in the middle, and so you're constantly getting spaced out, and you run out of room to move. It's just a fucking weird, like when you think back on it now, it's just a weird fucking concept for a video game. But
my video game.
But that's definitely one of them. I mean, if we're looking for kind of like, that early to mid 80s era of arcade games. Was it a Snake Pit or something? It's not an official Indiana Jones game, but like Sente put it out, and I want to say that's another trackball game. But you also have a whip. And you're running around whipping snakes. That's a neat game for what it is. Tutankhamun, depending on which platform you're playing it on, is a Konami game where you can only shoot sideways, and that's fucking insane. Or maybe you can only shoot sideways on the 2600 version. No, I think you had to like fire left, fire right buttons even in arcades. Anyway. I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff. It's one of the cool things about, MAME and the state of arcade emulation is that there are so many strange arcade games that, if you haven't seen them all already, because you maybe have already done this, but, if you got a full MAME install and just messed around with it for a while and just played all those games from that era, it's a really there's a lot of fascinating ideas that you see, and you see some of them and you go like, oh, these are ideas that went somewhere, and like this genre came out of this. And then you see some ideas that are just fucking dead ends, and you just go like, okay, yeah, no, they were trying to make games like this for a little bit, and then it didn't catch on, and then you never saw it again, and that was that. And so it's fascinating to kind of look at some of the obscure stuff that came out through most of the 80s. I think you get to 88, 89, you know, stuff starts to solidify in a way that is not always, you know, like as consoles kind of became a bigger deal and everything, like everything kind of heads in a direction eventually. But like in the heady early days of arcades and in that mid-period struggle where everything became multiplayer, Gauntlet was a big deal, and like that kind of 85, 86, 87 stuff before we get to the, you know, the just the like, here's the Simpsons game and here's all these fucking beat 'em ups and, you know, designed to suck all your quarters and all that stuff. Like there's and before you get into the 90s and the fighting game boom, obviously, there is like a really weird period there where there was just like a lot of stuff happening all the time. I mean, even just playing sequels to Pac-Man, we were talking about that when we were playing Pac-Mania on the NES and ranking that. Just like Super Pac-Man and Pac-and-Pal and Professor Pac-Man, if you must, and Pac-Man Plus and all of these other weird Pac-Man games that came out over the years that Namco made most of them. And just seeing them try to figure out, like, what the fuck can we do with fucking Pac-Man, dude? Because it's a really interesting set of games to just, like, stare at and go, like, man, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
Let's see here. See if I have any more questions here. Kyle in Austin asks, why did Street Fighter 3 not really land with Street Fighter fans? I played various versions of Street Fighter 2 up until Soul Calibur 2 and Tekken 2 took off, missing both Alpha and Street Fighter 3. So maybe that answers my question.
Oh, no, that's water. You didn't have to save your water.
I think it's, you know, like Street Fighter 3 has a much better place in history now than it did then. But like ultimately it was that Street Fighter 3, if I had to like nail it down to one single reason, which I think is oversimplifying it a little bit, Street Fighter 3's roster is too weird and did not have enough of the characters that people liked from Street Fighter 2. When you're just like, here's we got this, yo man, you want to play as Ryu? Yeah, we got him. You want to play as the other guy? Yeah, sure. Okay. Now here's a man what lives in a bag.
Job on breakfast, young lady.
He's a weird, creepy, fucking moldy garbage creature that hangs in a weird sack. And like, what the fuck is Oro? What the fuck is an Oro? I still don't know what the fuck Oro is. I just like, what the trench coat robot and like all this other shit, man. So I think just like, you eventually get to Street Fighter, you eventually get to Third Strike. And by the time you get to Third Strike, they had added more characters to the game. You know, they put Chun-Li in it and some of this other stuff. And they had changed that game a bit to, I think, in ways that I think it eventually found its crowd, right? But the Street Fighter 3 cast is not nearly as iconic as the Street Fighter 2 cast. It's a hassle. It's a weird problem because, you know, like, by the time we got to Super Turbo, there had been so many Street Fighter 2 games. And then you get into the alpha games. You get into like, okay, now we're going to make some prequel games that also have a lot of the characters you care about in them, or versions, you know, okay, we're not going to put Guile in here, but we put Charlie in, and you know, I think Alpha did a better job of following up Street Fighter 2 than Street Fighter 3 ever did. And then you get to Alpha 3 and there's like 8 trillion characters in it and you're just like, well, now kind of everyone is in this now, so whatever. But like the Alpha games, 1, 2, and 3, every single one of them, fucking
I feel
awesome.
you, young lady, I feel you.
You know, Alpha 1, you don't really go back to these days because Alpha 2 and 3 are so strong. But at the time, Alpha was fucking great. You could like air block and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? This is so crazy. And just being able to Yeah, I mean, like to me, that was the real follow-up to Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 3 was weird, you know? Had its crazy parry system, and, you know, like the vibe of it was all different, and just the look of it, and it looked great. You're like, there's so many frames in this fireball, I can't believe it. But like, it just didn't feel right. Third Strike feels right in its own way. But as someone who is not like, you know, high-level competitive player or whatever,
you're working on your
I still prefer
Mom
Alpha to Street Fighter 3.
Show her when you come home, and then something from
It's
your
fucking 9 times out of 10, man.
You should have some drawings, right, or something as you go through it.
Like, those games are so good. And I always wanted them to make Alpha 4. I always wanted, you know, but like the reality is that they ended up trickling a lot of those characters into, you know, other parts of the Street Fighter universe, and where it made sense. And so, you know, you got your stuff. But like Street Fighter EX was also really fun too. EX and EX2 were like if you wanted weird Street Fighter, I think like, yeah, Arika's take on Street Fighter was fucking bonkers.
You don't need to move out here, do you?
And Street Fighter 3 just felt like a totally different thing. And I remember we went to go play. We heard that an arcade had it, and we went to go play it. This was like early days of GameSpot. Me and Ryan McDonald went to an arcade to play a bunch of Street Fighter 3.
Fuel time for baby.
And we played a couple hours of it, and I think both of us were just like, man, I don't like this at all. Like, I don't like the way this feels. I don't want to do this. And just, you know, that was that. And so, and I think that was, Street Fighter 3 was not the success that Street Fighter 2 was. And Alpha was the fun game that kind of picked that stuff up. And of course, remember, like, you know, it's in that block of years where all that stuff was happening, you know, Capcom was also getting into some of the Marvel games along the way. And so it wasn't long before you'd see Children of the Atom and Marvel versus Street Fighter and X-Men versus Street Fighter. And so like that whole thing was happening too. And just, you know, that all that shit is fucking crazy. That stuff was maybe too crazy for me. I liked Children of the Atom a lot. I liked Marvel superheroes a lot. And then once they started becoming more and more like launcher air combo tag team fucking insanity, like I don't know. I lost interest in a lot of that stuff. Alpha 2 is the sweet spot, the absolute sweet spot. For me, the two peaks of the arcade era Street Fighter are Turbo, not Super Turbo, but Hyper Fighting, and Alpha 2. I think those are like the pinnacles, the high points of that stuff. I know people love Super Turbo and all of that. And, you know, I played a lot of Super. I think by the time Super Turbo came out, I was a little just fucking done with whether it was the announcer or whatever, man. I think just there was certain stuff about the way Super rolled that I just kind of fell out of love with it, you know, whether it was the new characters or not enough new characters or whatever it was. It was just, yeah, like that stuff just became, I don't know, kind of too much. It probably didn't help that Super Turbo did not get a readily accessible home port unless you had the 3DO. And as someone who had access to a 3DO, we did play some there, but yeah, by the time Super Turbo came out, I think everyone at the time, and you know, Super Turbo obviously found its legacy and whatever, but I think at the time everyone was just done with 2. You know, it was like everyone had played so much Street Fighter 2, and no matter how much you tack onto that and add characters and change this and that, it was still 2. And it was like, I just need something else, man. And Alpha was the game that scratched that itch for me for sure. Alpha 3 I did not come to appreciate until I was playing it on a Dreamcast when like Double Impact or whatever it was came out. And that's Double Impact is like, that's just the first one and second Impact, right? It's not Third Strike, because I think they sold Third Strike separately. But like when the second revision of Street Fighter 3 came out, and it was on Dreamcast. Like I remember kind of playing a bunch of that because it was something that you didn't have to put quarters in. You know, it was like a good home version of the game, and you could really kind of like settle into Second Impact and go like, there's still a lot of stuff here I don't like, but at least we're not paying 75 cents a pop to play it. And so, you know, you kind of end up spending a little more time with it, getting a little better at it and whatever. But like that also meant like I did not get into Third Strike until relatively fucking recently, you know, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you know, and by relatively recently, I mean like 15 years ago, but like you know, by the time Third Impact came out, or by the time Third Strike came out rather, I was just like, dude, I already played a bunch of this. Like, oh, you're adding more stuff. Okay, fine, whatever, dude. Like, I'm just whatever, man. Stop trying to make Street Fighter 3 happen. And then it went off, and you know, became Third Strike. You know, became a very big deal on the pro circuit, and how, you know, like all of that stuff, and that became very fascinating. And I went back to it years later with a much different view on, you know, fighting games in general and how much I was willing to learn versus just like play by feel and whatever else. And, you know, I had a much better time with Third Strike way after the fact. And so that was really, I don't think I respected any of the Street Fighter 3 games until,
all right,
like,
baby. Hey, you want to go pick your clothes?
Until Third Strike was getting released on like XBLA
don't be lazy.
You know, wherever it was. But
we're
like,
not going anywhere. Just school today here.
I kind of understood.
So you can
what
pick
that
your own
really
clothes,
was.
whatever you want to wear.
And I think that's going to do it for us here today.
I need to find some way to file all your schoolwork.
Thanks everybody who wrote in.
Can I take that down?
Remember, podcast at guard.bike is the email address to send your emails in to, and I will check them out. And, you know, I have a question here, but this is more for a Mr. Do Pro. This question is really more for a Mr. Do.pro. But I'll take it here. Davis from Syracuse writes in and asks, is Quest Fantasy Challenge for the Game Boy Color a Mr. Do game in disguise? If so, does it make Mr. Do canonically part of the Quest universe? Have you played Quest Fantasy Challenge? And if so, what did you think of it as the internet's #1 expert on all things Mr. Do? So I thank you for saying that, but I don't know that I would say that I'm the internet's #1 expert on all things Mr. Do. I like Mr. Do a lot, but I'm not a Mr. Do.pro. That's more of a Sedmal question, if I ever heard one. The original, actual Mr. Do Pro. But I have played Quest Fantasy Challenge. It's cool, as the screen says when you beat some number of levels in it. Cool.
I was in.
What is it? No, Quest Fantasy Challenge is a ripoff of Mr. Do. Yes, it's a very strange thing where the Quest 64 franchise spawned a couple of other games. And one of them is a fucking weird Mr. Do clone that I think actually really fails to understand what makes Mr. Do work and what makes Mr. Do tick. Because it is a slower, kind of broken version of Mr. Do that sucks. That game sucks. Quest Fantasy Challenge sucks. I want to own a copy of it because I'm broken inside. But it's not a good game. I love that it exists, but it's fucking awful. I just want to L-shoe Nix for myself. That's all. I just want to see it on real hardware. But that game is suck. But we'll have to get the Mr. Do.pro's, you know, we'll have to visit his website at Mr. Do.pro and see, you know, see what his official professional take on Quest Fantasy Challenge is one of these days. Maybe I'll save this question. We can get him on here one of these days and see what he has to say about all of this. But until then, that's going to do it for this show. I will be back tomorrow. We'll hang out. We'll do something with video games. And then, you know, on Friday, we'll rank some 8-bit Nintendo games. At some point, Battlefield comes out, and you know, maybe I'll have something to say about that sometime in that release window.
Yep.
And then a lot of other games. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff. A lot of video games are piling up right now. But yes, I will see you in the morning. Until then, have a good one. Bye.
Break free with the